Hello, hello, Jordan Chariton live with Tina-Desiree Berg. It is a little 10 after 8 o'clock. The polls in Michigan have closed, and we are already getting results in that indicate looks like a significant result for the Uncommitted campaign in Michigan. If you're not aware, obviously Biden's not really running against anyone per se. So he's obviously going to win the primary. It's just symbolic. But there is a uncommitted ballot line that is specifically being pushed by people like Congressman Rashida Tlaib, Arab American leaders, particularly in Dearborn, Michigan, which has the highest population of Arab Americans in America.
Yeah.
And we've heard everything from it could be 10,000 to now,
according to NBC.
Colin, if you have that, uncommitted vote tally could exceed 100,000, Michigan Democrats say. A Michigan Democrat source told NBC News about projecting an uncommitted vote tonight that could surpass 100,000 votes, far beyond what the Listen to Michigan campaign organizers have set as their expectation. So we'll see. Obviously, we'll tell you the results as they come in. Smash the like button, share this live stream so we can get it out. Other than where I live, Michigan's kind of my second hometown. I've been there more than anywhere else. I have been to Dearborn a couple times. First of all, putting aside the politics of it all, because that's really the main focus, and we'll play some disturbing clips, I think, from James Carville and other political blowhards. Putting aside the political aspect, I will say, Tina, I'm a Jew, you're a Jew. Neither of us, I would say, are particularly religious, but I just find it very numbing that the coverage of the Michigan primary has really been about the political aspects and the political ramifications and what it means for November, when the bottom line is 30,000 people have died in Gaza, 19,000 of whom are women and children. Frankly, I think that's an undercount because, as Jeremy Scale has pointed out with The Intercept, there's a lot of rubble and, sadly, a lot of dead bodies under that. I wanted your thoughts before we get to the political aspect, and it seems like we're going to be surprised by how many people vote uncommitted. But it does seem like there's a disconnect between the, in real time genocide happening and kind of the electoral horse race.
Oh, there absolutely is. I saw is it Greenblatt from ADL? He was trying to make the case that Zionism and Judaism are the same. And if you are not a Zionist, you're anti-Semitic. And I just can't, honestly, I can't believe in 2024, anybody's still trying to cling to that notion, because it's just garbage. It's not true. There are plenty of, now even more so, more vocal lefty Jews talking about what's happening in Israel, how they don't agree with it, how they're not Zionists. That has long been the case, although, a lot of these folks didn't speak up in the past because they were, constantly silenced, called capos or traitors or a whole host of things, and I think we've kind of changed on that. But the idea that you can't criticize any state, let alone Israel, is ridiculous. That's just not true. If you don't criticize them, in fact, you're opening the door to a very dangerous area in which they can literally do whatever they want, carte blanche, and not have to be responsible or accountable for those actions. And I think that's what we have been building up to in Israel and Palestine for a long time now. This didn't start on October 7th, right? This has been building up to this place for a very long time. And, the fact that the American government just constantly enables what I would like to call a drunk uncle. You're drunk, you're the uncle, you're drunk. Let's give you the keys to just drive around town and wreak havoc. That's sort of how this feels to me. They just don't want to acknowledge that there's a very real problem here. And they also don't want to acknowledge that the super right-wing government in Israel, they're very fascist. They're very nationalistic. There's no room for left thinking in the Israeli government at this point. In the last month or so, you've seen them expel or try to expel a left member of the Knesset. You'll hear them say, we want to kill all Arabs. We want to kill all leftists. They hate leftists. So this is the tone that's happening there. And within the country, you have leftist Jews starting to feel very uncomfortable as well, being persecuted, by their fellow Israeli citizens. So any Democrat in the United States that can't see that, acknowledge it, have a discussion on it is just, I don't know, it just shocks me at this point. So, Biden, because of his age, I think, he comes from a time when support for Israel was axiomatic to being in American politics, right? It didn't matter which party you belonged to. That's what you did. But that time has come and gone. People see things really clearly now because of phone camera footage and a whole host of other things. Stuff that you weren't aware of 40 years ago, you now see clearly what's happening. And it's not just in Gaza, the West Bank, everything else. So at this point in time, I don't see how they can continue to ignore the obvious.
Yeah. Colin, I sent you the New York Times link. You could just pop in periodically with updates. But as of now, I mean, early days, 6% of the vote in, 11% is the uncommitted 11%. Vote. So Biden is at 83%. Technically, Marianne Williamson, who dropped out, is at 2%. Dean Phillips, 2%. But uncommitted is at 11%. So that equals almost 6,000 votes. And I'll say Trump won Michigan in 2016 by 10,000, a little over 10,000 votes.
That was the margin.
Biden won in 2020 by 150,000 votes, which on, to your ears, it sounds like a lot, but in a state like Michigan, it's really not. It could swing back really quickly. Yeah. And I'll say we'll get to the meat of the issue, which is genocide. But just from an electoral perspective, I think why Michigan is so important. If you look at all the other polls right now, Biden's losing in 6 out of 7 swing states, and not by a little. Nevada, he's down by 10 points. Nevada, which went to Biden in 2016, Nevada was hit hardest economically by COVID because basically the whole Vegas Strip shut down.
Right.
So right or wrong, they are blaming it on the Democrat, and polling, Trump is up by 10 points. Arizona and Georgia, Biden only won by about 1 point. Right now, Biden's losing both Arizona and Georgia. And Georgia, as Tina could tell you, in 2020, Biden basically won Georgia because of Atlanta. More black voters came out in Atlanta. Well, a lot of black people are rightly pissed off with the Democrats right now in Atlanta because of a thing called Cop City, which Tina has covered twice. You could say, well, that's not Biden, but it's all connected. It's the Democratic Party is in control in Atlanta, and they are pushing through a militarized police compound, which just so happens to Cop City, when it is built, those trainees will have some of their training from the IDF.
Yeah.
So
there's definitely a connection. Yeah.
Yeah. So why Michigan's important is if you just look at the map, if Biden loses Michigan, he really can't afford to lose many other swing states. He would have to win Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Georgia, and one of Arizona, Nevada, New Hampshire. He really doesn't have a lot of wiggle room. Right. So that's why Michigan's important. I'll also say, I would say, Tina, I don't know what you think. Obviously, we'll see what the results are as they come in. I would not declaratively state that the entire bastion of uncommitted that votes for uncommitted tonight is about Gaza. It's anecdotal, but for example, CNN interviewed some old guy today, and he said he voted uncommitted for a lot of different reasons, not just because of the sending Biden a message on Gaza, but sending Biden a message, period. So this kind of encompasses the majority of the vote for uncommitted is specifically targeted towards sending him a message on Gaza. But I would guess there's a significant percentage in there that are just unhappy, period, with Biden and the Democratic Party.
Oh, I agree. Gaza's a big forefront issue, but I think income inequality is a massive issue. The Census Bureau brought out some data recently showing that the people living on the edge in rent areas where the rent has increased, they can't get by. It's gotten worse. So when he says the economy is doing great and blah, 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 that falls on deaf ears to a big portion of the country. They can't afford to pay rent, and it keeps going higher and higher. I think what you're talking about in Atlanta, at Cop City, you know, they're having Cop City protests this weekend, Tucson, Arizona, in solidarity. And there were some arrests there this week already there in regards to those protests. But, you know, there's a lot of reasons that people that are on the left are angry with the Democratic Party. And it's all kind of coming to fruition. I mean, I go back to that famous quote, and I can't remember who said it, but if you run a Republican against a Republican, the Republican always wins.
Right.
So if the Democrats can't find a way to really differentiate themselves from the GOP in these basic areas, it's enough to get people to not to come out and vote. Having said that, I do think Trump is a whole nother ball of wax. This guy is, you know, authoritarian. He's fascist. He's not a normal GOP guy. He's not in the normal range of GOP politics.
That's a good segue. Colin, do you have the clip? I want to play Debbie Dingell. She's a Michigan congresswoman. Okay. She was on today, and she was basically, you know, Rashida Tlaib has really been one of at the forefront of this Uncommitted campaign. She's the only Palestinian American congresswoman. She was censured, I think, wrongly for daring to speak out against, you know, the slaughter of her her people in Gaza. And Debbie Dingell. Well, let's just play the clip and see what people think.
When 74% of Democrats in Michigan support a ceasefire, yet President Biden is not hearing us. This is the way we can use our democracy to say, listen to Michigan, listen to the families right now that have been directly impacted, but also listen to the majority of Americans who are saying enough. No more wars. No more using our dollars to fund a genocide.
I have a different perspective than some. I'm glad we're talking about it now and not on October 15th. I also say to my colleague, who I talk to all the time, you do not want Donald Trump to be president. If Hamas had done this under a Trump presidency, I'm not sure that he would have just nuked Gaza, to be perfectly frank. So we have very honest, very blunt conversations, but I understand how people are hurting in this community and that they are calling for a ceasefire.
I get what she's trying to say, but to somebody living in Dearborn or Detroit who have lost 15 to 20 family members, I don't really think it makes much of a difference if the alternative is morally even worse of a scumbag who would have, you know, quote unquote, nuked it. If the current president, it might not be nukes, but for all intents and purposes, it's carpet bombing. I mean, that's kind of a lesser of two evils argument that I believe, you know, I don't want to pretend to understand because my family is not being slaughtered right now, but it kind of rings hollow if your family, I mean, we're talking people who have lost 5, 10, 15 members of their family. Even if they haven't lost family members, it's their homeland. Yes, I think there's a lot to that. I think Trump on paper would be worse, but Biden's pretty bad. I mean, Biden's pretty bad. And I think genocide, and I would call it that, you know, I don't use that word loosely, but
no, it's it's genocide.
There's clearly no, there's no eliminating Hamas, right? It's an idea. You're actually regenerating more Hamas members.
Yeah, it's going to increase the anger. Every person that loses multiple family members, they were already being oppressed. They were already living under a brutal occupation, a siege.
Right.
This is just going to make it. Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
And Tina, to be clear, I mean, it's very rare that I ever say anything that is a compliment to Ronald Reagan. But in 1982, Israel was bombing Beirut. I wasn't alive, but from what I've read, it was pretty horrible.
I was alive. I forget how much younger you are.
We don't need to mention numbers, but Ronald Reagan's called Prime Minister at that time, Menachem Begin, and said, this looks like a Holocaust, and said it needs to stop. And it stopped. Now, one could say, well,
do you know who they were bombing? Do you know the whole story about all that?
Tell us.
I mean, part of what was happening there is there were Palestinian refugees living in camps along the Lebanese border. And the IDF basically went in there and just started killing people in the camps, just to make it clear.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So the bottom line is, Biden, it's one thing to say Israel has a right to defend itself, yada, yada. I think October 7th, I think the world did have sympathy for Israel.
Yeah.
Just from a human perspective, yes,
Yeah.
innocent people were kidnapped and murdered, but
Right.
there's really there's no real common sense, logical way of saying we're defending ourselves when you're bombing refugee camps, killing 200 people at a time, bombing hospitals, bombing markets. And Biden, when he's the few times he does speak publicly, because he would not speak to the interview on the Super Bowl, which is
Right.
unheard of. His interview with Seth Meyers last night was pretty rough as a charitable statement. But the few comments he makes, it's all these talking points about, well, Hamas this and Hamas that. At the end of the day, they can't do this without our continued funding. They can't do this without our continued support. And I think it was within his right to say there is no military solution to this. And by the way, Netanyahu already rejected several offers that would have released almost all the hostages.
Exactly. His goal, I don't feel like his goal is to, I'm going to be blunt on this. I don't think his ultimate goal is to get the hostages back. Bibi is part of the settler movement. His goal is to increase the settlements and to take over the entire area of Gaza and make it part of Israel. That is his end game. He knows that what happened provided him the means to do that, the cover to do that. So he's going full bore right now in that direction. The fact that we have seen Israeli hostages killed is fucking disgusting. That this didn't have to be the way. The way he's handling this, to me, Jordan, is like, this to me is like saying we found some terrorists in Idaho in the American Redoubt or some area. There's some Aryan, Brotherhood guys there. They're gonna, plant some pipe bombs. They're gonna do this, that, or the other, or they did plant a pipe bomb and blew something up. This would be like us saying, okay, let's just send the military and the FBI in there and just start carpet bombing the entire state of Idaho. If children die, oh well, they live there, not a problem, it's fine. Nobody would stand for that because it would be an outrageous response to a terrorist attack.
Right. And right now, just to update you, it looks like Uncommitted is 16% of the vote, and that's not 9% of the votes in. So it keeps going up. 16% is not nothing.
It's not nothing. Jordan, let me ask you this too. When Biden in the last go around basically said that he wasn't going to go for a second term, that he would be a bridge president, this was some of the language that he used, right? Because of his age, he's quite old. And for that matter, so was Trump. Neither of these guys are fit for office. I just can't believe that this is where we're at.
Well,
but here we are.
Can I just say, I hate to interrupt you.
Yeah.
And yes, we will do plenty of, pinata on Biden tonight. But let's be clear. Tina, I don't know, 10 years ago, if a politician made the comments that Donald Trump just made about black people, they would have been forced to drop out within 48 hours. If you don't know, because pretty much everything Trump says has been normalized at this point.
It's
Trump,
out of control.
Over the weekend, basically said at a rally, he had some black folks behind him. Some of them, I will tell you, because I've seen them for 8 years traveling, are paid, but some, not all. But he basically said, I think black people like me because of my mugshot. I think black people like me because I keep getting indicted, and they they feel like they've been treated like me. I mean, the just brazen racism and bigotry, and thinking these people are morons. That they're gonna and then he had I don't know what color, but special shoes that black people would like. I mean, it is so. I mean, there's the Hillary Clinton, you're all super predators type of racism. And then there's the Donald Trump, just almost making fun of you to your face, thinking you're not going to realize it.
Right.
So anyway, I just wanted to put that out there because we have two really bad choices, but I don't want to minimize Biden. Trump is horrible. Anyway, go ahead. I interrupted.
No, I agree with you. I don't know. I lost my train of thought now.
It's okay.
I agree with that. You're right. Trump, we are in a very precarious position in this country. I think most people realize it. Maybe some are still not quite grasping what's happening here, but this could very well upend democracy in the country as we know it currently. I understand that our democracy is paid for by corporations. So but it does get worse than that, is what I'm saying. There is true authoritarian fascism that could happen.
Right. And I think there's another component to this. And by the way, we got 500 people watching, so please smash that like button. Please share this live stream. We just passed 174,000 subscribers. So thank you. Super chats are welcome. Kudos to John Farina, was just on the ground. He was covering a vigil for the veteran who self-immolated, which Tina and I were talking off camera. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I got mixed feelings on that. I respect the message behind it. I just personally feel, I don't know how I feel about it, to be honest with you. But we'll talk about that. Yeah. But I want to point out, I don't think it's just like if Biden tomorrow demanded a ceasefire and said, we're not sending the 14 billion. I don't really think that immediately means, let's say 50,000 Michiganders tonight vote uncommitted. I don't think that automatically means all 50,000 of them say, great, we're with you in November, because what happens after that? There is
it
no
would help, though. It would help.
No, it would help, but that's just part of it. I mean, there's no infrastructure left in Gaza. They've bombed the north, they bombed the central. Now they're about to go in full scale in Rafah. There is nowhere for,
which is just, that's egregious. They told them to go to that area and that they would be safe there. And so also for folks that don't understand, the Rafah crossing, which goes into Egypt, is controlled. You can't just go across it. So they're all stuck there at the end of this part of Gaza. They can't just leave. I don't know if people realize that. You can't leave Gaza. You literally cannot leave. If you go 200 or whatever feet or whatever miles it is off the coast, you'll get shot at by snipers, because that's a no-go area. You can't go into Egypt. You obviously can't go into Israel. They're very much trapped right now in Rafah with no food. Right.
Exactly. But I think that what these protests, which, by the way, we've covered over 30. We have covered more protests. When I say we, I mean John. John has been doing God's work.
John's been doing God's work. Thank you, John.
I'm on my third round of book edits, so that's why I haven't been out there, but he's been doing amazing. I mean, he was live for like 4 hours over the weekend. Often he's out live 2-3 hours. We've covered it in New York, DC, rallies, marches, vigils. It's a modern marvel. He hasn't been arrested yet, even though he's not doing anything wrong. The police are out of control. What else is new? But what I'll say is, I think a lot of the protesters, yes, they want a ceasefire, but I do not think that all of these folks, I'm just talking nationwide, but even Michigan, are only calling for a ceasefire. They're also calling for...
They want change.
They want change. They don't want it to just go back to the status quo. Status quo with a wall between occupied Palestine and Israel, you know, attacking olive farms of the Palestinians and cutting off water and electricity at their whim, and rounding up Palestinians. And it's Biden, I don't really see. I mean, he called himself a Zionist on the Seth Meyers show last night.
I saw that.
With a very backwards definition of what Zionism is, by the way. I don't see anything in his record that he's actually serious about a two-state solution. And I think that if they came forward and if he really tried to push forward a two-state solution, I don't see anything in his record that it would be anything different than some type of Oslo Accords. Let's give Palestinians some hodgepodge of not contiguous land that is isolated areas.
Happen.
So I
have thoughts on that.
I don't really, basically what I'm saying is, of course, there's the macro and the micro. In the micro, you just need the bombs to stop. You need a ceasefire. You need massive humanitarian relief in there. And you need people to be able to eat, feed their children, and go home. So that's first and foremost. But after that, I don't personally know. It's not like these folks in Michigan and nationwide. And when I say folks, young people, Arab Americans, it's a lot of people that are a part of this campaign that are moving away from
Mark
Biden.
Levine? Didn't he endorse it as well?
Oh, I don't know. But I would say it's not like they're just going to, if you have a ceasefire and, funding is pulled, they're going to clap for Biden. We're going to vote for you. They're going to be paying attention to what comes next. And I don't see within the next 8 months a real two-state solution, a real one-state solution. The United States finally vetoing things at the UN that are that would piss off Israel. And we also have to remember, I mean, I'm not an expert on Israeli politics, but Bibi Netanyahu is his what do they call it? Coalition in Israel is mostly marked by radical Orthodox Jews who think he's not going far enough against the Palestinians.
It's not just even Orthodox. You literally have a guy in his current cabinet that was thrown out of the government previously for terrorism.
Right.
It is a very bad coalition that he has involved there. Likud isn't the most right-wing party in the country by a long shot. Kahana is from Kosh, which they have a different party name now, and I can't remember what it is. Those guys are way more to the right. Home Party, that's the settler party. They're way more to the right. So but I think he believes in the same ideals that they do. And these are very ultra-nationalist right-wing ideals. I was talking to somebody here in Los Angeles they were asking me questions about this, and it was shocking them to learn that that was the case, because in the United States media, they don't really discuss these differences of political spectrums that exist within the state of Israel, right? It's just carte blanche, support Israel. Let's not discuss what's happening in the country politically, right? So, and a lot of them really have this kind of idea that right-wing fascism doesn't really gel together with somebody that's Jewish, right? That just doesn't seem like, it doesn't feel good to them because of, obviously the history of the world. But this is a thing. Fascism can take over in any country, in every group. No group's monolithic, right? And here we see just this buildup that's been going on in Israel for 30 years now, I'd say. We've been marching towards this. So fascism hasn't been increasing. A lot of the lefty Jews left the country. They didn't feel comfortable, which now you get more self-selecting for more, uber right-wing beliefs within the country. And I just feel I don't know how this ends, but it doesn't end well.
Mm-hmm.
I think the two-state solution, forget it. That ship sailed. I don't see how that ever comes back into fruition. The settlements are everywhere. I don't think you could dismantle all of the settlements in the West Bank. I think it's fundamentally impossible to do that. I personally would like to see, and I don't know if this is a pipe dream as well, I think it's time for Israel to grow up and become an actual democracy. Give the Palestinians...
America too.
Yeah, okay, fair. Fair. But you know what I'm saying? You can be an apartheid ethno-state, or you can be a democracy. You can't be both. These folks also have a right to the land that they were born on, or their parents were born on, lived there for generations and generations and generations. It's not fair to ignore that, in my opinion.
Right. Absolutely. We have just...
Also, by the way, hang on. I found the Mark Levine thing. He did join on and endorse the movement. He says this is a catastrophe in Gaza. Former U.S. Rep. Andy Levine, Democrat from Bloomfield Township, during an interview on MSNBC, focused on his endorsement of the uncommitted push by our revolution. I'm afraid if we don't change course, that we can't win on November 5th. And that's why I'm pouring my energy into this, because we cannot allow Donald Trump to be anywhere near the White House again.
Who are you? You're talking about Mark Levine, the radio?
Oh, sorry, Andy Levine. Did I say Mark?
Yeah, you said Mark.
I covered too much right-wingers.
Yeah.
Pardon me, Andy Levine.
So I want to play. I'm
glad you caught that.
Yes, we have a shit ton of clips because, again, we've covered over 30 protests. So I want to play some of them and react to it.
Okay.
As we stand, it's 10% of the vote is in Michigan. Biden is at 78%. The uncommitted vote is at 16%. Dean Phillips and Marianne Williamson pretty low. But again, it's 10%, and it could potentially get to a quarter of the vote, 25% of the vote, which would be pretty significant. Actually, you know what, Colin? Let's play James Carville, because I want to make a point that most of the corporate ghouls that have been running the Democratic Party for the last 30 years, their focus is not on the death and destruction in the Middle East, on innocent Palestinians. It is Trump and, the electoral political ramifications. Let's play James Carville.
Democratic strategist James Carville, who served as the lead strategist on Bill Clinton's presidential campaign. James, I won't get into Diane Gallagher's live show. There weren't a lot of people in that gymnasium. I think there were more posters of the kids on the wall there than there were voters actually in that in that voting location. Maybe it'll pick up as the day goes on. But, you know, Diane was talking about this uncommitted vote in Michigan because of, the war in Gaza. There are some Democratic activists who are saying they want to see Democrats vote uncommitted instead of for President Biden. What do you think about the concerns about that? Are they well-founded? Is this being blown out of proportion? What do you think?
Well, first of all, congratulations on your new show. I'm honored to be a part of it.
Thanks, James.
I think this issue is deep, and I think it's a lot deeper than just progressive advocates or young people or college campuses. I hope the president can get some kind of ceasefire and take this off the front burner, because, frankly, its damage politically is pretty substantial. And if we get to Chicago at the convention and this thing is still going on, I don't want to think about what's going to happen there.
Yeah. And I guess there's also the concern, James, that the margin could be close enough in Michigan that this could have an impact. Do you buy that? Is that something that's been talked about as a concern inside the party?
You know, I have to see, but it did look like the early vote was impressive. Now, they have a good state party there. The UAW, the unions are very organized, so that may not be telling us much. I think we're just going to have to wait till they count the ballots tonight and see what it does and make a determination. But regardless of what happens, this Gaza thing is really tearing the Democratic Party out.
So, we got to get that Gaza thing off the front burner. That Gaza thing, that small genocide off the front burner. I mean, this is the mentality. I mean,
I know.
To the credit of a lot of
They
Democrats,
don't hear themselves, Jordan. They don't hear themselves.
There has been, 60 or so Congress people that have called for a ceasefire. So I'll give some of them credit. But I mean, these are the people sending out when the DNC sends fundraisers, from James Carville, right. From David Axelrod. Axelrod was on too. And it's like, it is a pretty bad political perspective, political situation, but that's kind of secondary to the real time slaughter of innocent people. Yes, I'd like the hostages released, but on a scale of what happened on October 7th and what is happening since, you can't tell me that this is an effort to ethnically cleanse and radically shrink the Palestinian population. I mean, I don't know and also Netanyahu, he's clinging on to power because if he's not prime minister, he's got his own criminal, corruption scandals. So there's really, unless Biden not kindly sends a letter or sternly talks to Netanyahu on the phone, but actually says we can't support this anymore. The money is cut off. He has no incentive to stop. Because for him, the longer this goes on, the longer he's in power, the longer he's in power, the longer he avoids his own corruption and potential criminal penalties in Israel.
Right. That's right. That's definitely true.
Let's play Colin Biden last night on the Seth Meyers show.
I saw this. This is bad.
Yeah, let's play this.
The bottom line is that I think the only way Israel ultimately survives, and I make no bones about it, I get criticized for having said a long time ago, you need not be a Jew to be a Zionist. I'm a Zionist. Were there no Israel, there's not a Jew in the world to be safe.
If there was no...
Right. So somebody in the chat is asking, I'm asking in good faith, what viable candidate wouldn't do exactly what Biden is doing regarding Israel? My response to that is none. They all would. It's a systemic problem in American politics.
Well, not all. If Bernie were president, I don't think he'd be doing.
Okay, fair. I agree with you there. I was thinking just of who's running for president right now in both parties. I think they would.
Well, frankly, RFK is.
Oh, he's terrible.
Perhaps more Zionistic than Biden. But I want to make a point. And to be clear, I'm no scholar of Zionism. I barely have gone to temple of my own volition over the last decade. When I have gone, it's been dragged.
Well, they should not be teaching Zionism in your temple. Let's just say that.
No, but my point is,
there's a problem.
My point is this notion by Biden, which I think is flawed, that if not for Israel, no Jew would be safe.
No, that's a disgusting, ridiculous thing for him to say. That's nonsense.
In my view, first of all, Zionism, the origins of it was not to create a safe space for Jews. The origin of Zionism is all the way back, and it's frankly religious fanaticism that, God spoke to Abram, who became Abraham, and said,
Yeah,
leave
that's
your
part of it,
land,
right?
leave your land and go to the Holy Land, which became Israel. It wasn't about creating a safe space. Obviously, after the Holocaust, it became that. But this idea, first of all, under Trump, anti-Semitism and hate crimes against Jews significantly rose in America. So, and around the world, by the way. So the notion that you could only be, as a Jew, you're only safe with Israel, you're not necessarily safe, period, because anti-Semitism, which Tina covers extensively in her coverage of extremism, exists all around the world. So just because Israel exists doesn't unilaterally mean Jews are safe. Technically, well, if you go to Israel, you're safe. But you can't have a notion and a movement that to create safety for one people will make others expendable and will make others basically, guinea pigs. Because that's basically, without saying it, that's what it comes across to me. He does not show the same concern for Palestinians that he does Jews. I think you could have two thoughts. I think you could have two thoughts at once. I'm not for what Hamas did. I understand what the mentality is among some, that you have to understand the hate. You have to understand that they've tried the nonviolent path and it's gotten them nowhere. So I understand the notion, but in general, I don't believe in taking one set of innocence as a reaction to another set of innocence. I just don't believe in that in any scenario. With that said, two wrongs don't make a right. That's what I was taught. And you cannot run in 2020 on restoring the soul of America. And then the soul of America, which, by the way, we don't have a soul, we're a corrupt oligarchy, is we're going to just kind of throw out platitudes as a democracy in the Middle East, slaughters 19,000 women and children, kills 30,000 people, levels infrastructure, says we're going to withhold water, food, and electricity. I mean, that's
Well, hang on. Let's talk about that for a second, because that's part of the problem, right? So much of our media and political discourse tries to center Gaza as like a sovereign nation, right? That has their own government body, does their own thing, blah, blah, blah. They are not a sovereign nation. They are an occupied territory.
Right.
And I feel like the entire rhetoric surrounding that needs to shift if people really want to understand what the problems are here. If your occupier, because you're an occupied territory, can turn off the water at any time, can turn off your electricity at any time, can control how much food you get, because that's something they've done in the past, there's problems there, right?
Right.
But none of that gets discussed by our media or our politicians. They don't talk about it. They don't want to talk about it. I do want to go back and talk about a little bit what you're talking about, the history of Zionism. I think the only reason
I hope my father's not watching. Go ahead.
I think this needs to be discussed. Listen, part of how for a very long time most Jewish people did not embrace political Zionism. They didn't. It was not popular. When that changed, it was because of the Holocaust. I strongly believe, if including America is in this, right? If more countries had been willing to take in Jewish refugees, things would have gone a different way. But nobody wanted to take, because of their own ingrained anti-Semitism in each of these countries, whether it's a European nation, whether it's America, right? There was a lot of anti-Semitism surrounding World War II. Yes, we fought the Nazis, but that doesn't mean we didn't have a lot of anti-Semitism here in the United States. We did. So I think the fact that this idea was brought to them, oh, wait, that kind of cures our problem, doesn't it? We don't have to take the refugees in. We can just, give this colonial empire land to the Jewish folks and let them set up a homeland. Just let them do that.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
for them, I think that was the attitude, is that it solved their problem, because there was a lot of anti-Semitism in the United States. And also, I think it bears mentioning that a lot of white supremacists are absolutely Zionists. That should not be like a mind blow for anybody. And I think for a lot of Democrats, it is. There's a reason that guys like Richard Spencer are like, yeah, I'm a Zionist, because they love ethno-states. They want their own white nationalist ethno-state. And if Jewish people choose to self-select and go somewhere else, it becomes less of a problem for them. They can have their white nationalist state.
Right. And I want to point out, just if you live in Michigan, this will ring a bell, but if you don't, I'll explain it. Right now, overall, the uncommitted vote is at 16%. Biden's at 78%, only 11% of the vote. But if you look at it, 30% of Wayne County is Detroit and Detroit and Dearborn. 30% is the uncommitted vote. Biden's at 63%. So that's
Interesting.
significant.
Yeah,
So
that's the largest Palestinian population in the country is in Dearborn, right?
Yeah, but Wayne County is the biggest county in Michigan. So basically to win Michigan, if you're a Democrat, you got to clean up in Detroit, got to do pretty well in Flint. That's a whole nother story. I'm very involved with Flint. But Detroit, I mean, you need a strong counting. Hillary Clinton in large part lost in 2016. She underperformed among particularly black voters in Detroit, in Milwaukee, losing Wisconsin, in Atlanta, but Detroit, Wisconsin, and parts of Pennsylvania. So uncommitted, you're going to expect that in Wayne County, uncommitted is going to be higher because that's where Dearborn and Detroit are. But already it's at 30% uncommitted in Wayne County. And why I think that's important, listen, it's basically March. We got a couple days left in February. So it's even if there is a ceasefire, even if Biden, somehow brings this to a halt, it's not like you just wipe off 30,000 dead and wipe off, so you can't expect every single one of those uncommitted to go back on board with Biden in November. Some of them might go third party. Some of them might say, I want more. I want a plan for a 2-state solution or a 1-state solution or some type of reparations for what's happened here. So I'm looking particularly at the county, not Michigan in totality, but where Democrats have to do well, which is Wayne County, again, Detroit and Dearborn. And that's why the fact that already it's only 11% of the total vote, but it's already 30% uncommitted in Wayne County. That's pretty significant because I think if Biden loses Michigan,
it's a death rattle for the Democratic Party. If they don't win Michigan, I don't think they can pull out the presidency, Jordan. I don't. I think Michigan's really an important state.
I'll also say, Tina, I love your thoughts. Again, I mean, we're both reporters, but for tonight's purposes, we're kind of prognosticating. I think if tonight is a really bad outcome, like if the uncommitted vote is potentially 20, 25%, I think the Democratic Party whispers of possibly a floor fight at the convention. Let's get Jill and Michelle and Barack to get in a room with Biden. I think that could get louder because every interview you see with him, I mean, it's not pretty.
No, it's terrible.
While he went out to give a speech after the special prosecutor in his case cleared him as far as the classified documents that he had, he confused Egypt with Mexico, the prime minister, the president of Mexico with the president of Egypt. In his Seth Meyers interview last night, when he's totally spent and just short circuits, he just says, well, never mind. He's just,
he's like, he's not. Again, he said he was only going to be a bridge president. He said that.
But Tina, you were in local news, right? Yeah. I worked in local news, this and that. The Super Bowl.
Yeah, you don't miss that.
There's no other media opportunity that you could get in front of 100 million people.
That was a crazy decision, in my opinion.
If you want
either that or he's so out of it, they don't want him to talk. I don't know what. Well,
that's what I was gonna say. I believe his staff thought the risk
was too high. That's bad.
Was greater than the reward, which tells me then they're going to have an excuse ready not to debate Trump, who at this point, let's just say he's going to be the nominee, but let's just say even if he's convicted, he doesn't drop out. He's going to have an excuse not to debate Trump. Say, God,
I
don't want to dignify him. He's an insurrectionist, whatever. So then people see, all right, you seem like you're out of it in the few press conferences you give. You don't give interviews. You won't debate. I mean,
the worst part too is Trump is doing some of the same shit that Biden is. Like, he's messing up stuff. He sounds ridiculous. They both should not. They're incompetent. Not should be running for president. I think people are angry for a really good reason. It's ridiculous that in the United States of America, these are your choices. I mean, how did we get here?
Right. It's
That's the conversation we need to have in this country. Is our political system so far gone that the best we have to offer are Biden and Trump? Are you kidding me? That's ridiculous.
I mean, let's be clear. The media is in on this. The media, this is not an endorsement of Marianne Williamson or RFK or any of them. But at the end of the day, the media helped cancel the primary. All the articles from day one where Biden doesn't have any serious challengers, no credible challengers. RFK, who I'm not a fan of, wasn't given a fair shake. Marianne, she didn't get a town hall on CNN. Chris Christie did when he was polling at 1%.
Right.
Marianne Williamson, RFK, they didn't get town halls on CNN or MSNBC. Nikki Haley did when she was polling under 5%. They gave Vivek Ramaswamy a town hall. He was polling way down there.
Why do you think that is? A serious question.
Because they don't want to have a primary. The media does not want to present other choices because, frankly, I think it's not so much that they're in the tank for Joe Biden. They are in the tank for the status quo, the corporate party. I think
status quo is not working, though. I mean, they must be.
It's working for them. It's certainly working for AT&T. It's certainly working for Comcast. It's certainly working for Viacom, the owner of CBS. It's certainly working for the owners of the New York Times, et cetera, et cetera. And also, you and I both know who are the people that litter the mainstream media at the New York Times, Washington Post, CNN, MSNBC. It's all cosmopolitan elitists who, not every single, there's lower level people who want to cover real things, but for the most part, the majority of people that work at these news stations are very disconnected from the people in Dearborn, Detroit, Flint.
And it's a problem that didn't used to be the case. How did we get here? I mean, we could go through the laws,
Well, Bill Clinton, 1996, the Telecommunications
Act, Fairness Doctrine, all these things contributed to that. But it's really unfortunate that it's just what is this? Is this the end of America? I mean, I just can't. Every new day, I feel like we're reaching new crazy highs.
Well, I'll also say at the end of the day, got to remember, technically the framing is Biden's losing people because he's old. I don't think it's just because he's old.
No, I don't think it is either.
Bernie Sanders is old. I'm not particularly thrilled with him at the moment, but by and large, he was incredibly popular because of his policies.
Right.
I think Biden's losing people because he ran on a $15 minimum wage, which at this point is the conservative
is way too low. Yeah, it needs to be $25 an hour or something.
He abandoned that pretty much, right away. Thanks
with poor excuses about a parliamentarian bullshit stuff. Yeah,
Manchin and the parliamentarian. That was bullshit. He ran on a public option, lost that from his vocabulary pretty quick. $2,000 checks, lost that. Ran on ending drilling on public lands. He's actually doubled it.
Mountain Valley
public
Pipeline.
Lands. There's a climate inferno. His big fucking speech about it was a cooling centers rather than a climate emergency. I'm sorry to the kids in Sunrise or whomever else applauded this. The Inflation Reduction Act is a Band-Aid to a gunshot wound. Tax credits for wind and solar and all that would have been nice in 2000, not 2023 at the time. That's like showing up to a massive block fire with a super soaker. It's nice, but it's totally inadequate. And sure, you could say, well, Jordan, it was a 50-50 Senate and he had Manchin and Sinema. Do you think fucking, Lyndon B. Johnson, did some terrible things, Vietnam, namely? You think he would allow Joe Manchin or Kirsten Sinema to stymie him? He would have taken him out by the knees. He was a bare knuckle brawler.
Right.
There was a lot of politicians like that. Biden didn't even try. He didn't even use the bully.
He didn't even try. No. Yeah.
When Joe Manchin literally blocked the extension of the child tax credit, which was one of the few good things Biden did, it did cut poverty significantly. He just said, Biden did nothing. And the Democrats said, well, Jordan, what do you want? You want him to go after Manchin? And then Manchin officially switches. And then Manchin officially switches to the Republican Party?
Let him. What's the difference?
Exactly. He was basically acting like a Republican.
Exactly.
So who cares if he's a Democrat or Republican? I think, but at the end of the day, listen, I think that the excitement and jubilance and free love of it all of Bernie 2016, we're kind of living in the empire. The establishment strikes back. If we're thinking Star Wars, because the establishment has struck back.
That's a great way to put it.
The progressive movement, electorally, that is kind of like Scar when he took over the Lion Kingdom right now.
Right.
There's no leaders electorally. Bernie's in his sunset years politically. Right now, I think the action is in the union movement and things outside electoral politics.
I
agree. There you have it. Biden officially wins the Michigan primary, which is not a surprise. But
not a surprise, but we want to monitor the uncommitted because that's 16.2 now. I mean, their goal was to what? Maybe have 10,000. They've already surpassed that at 17. And, earlier in the night, NBC had said that they had an inside source that said they wouldn't be surprised if it reached 100K. That's a significant number.
Absolutely. And
Let me ask you this, Jordan, because you cover Michigan a lot and you're more clear on this stuff. I was curious to know why choose uncommitted as a solution versus voting for like Dean Phillips per se. What is the logic behind that?
Well, Dean Phillips has the same view.
Oh, well, that gotcha.
Yeah,
that makes perfect sense.
Dean Phillips is not called. As far as I know, he hasn't called for a ceasefire, and to me, is a younger, more sly, wealthier version of Joe Biden. So I think that's why. But
that makes sense because this is a very unique thing to have this uncommitted option on your primary ballot. How many states have that? Only a couple, right?
Actually, from what I've looked at, Michigan always has uncommitted. It just wasn't used for a specific purpose. It was just uncommitted. So they're just using uncommitted, which was always there, about Israel, Gaza. But I'll also say, I think that I would also think that a lot of this movement, and obviously there's older people who care, but when you look in the streets, it's mostly young people.
Yeah,
I think a lot of these young people were kind of out on Biden before this Israel, Gaza. I mean, he was shredding younger voters in the polls before October 7th. Some polls showed like Trump and Biden pretty close among those 18 to 34, which is insane if you think about it. I mean, Donald Trump. So again, there's a problem because I think the neoliberal bubble of the last 40 years is slowly, it's being poked at, and it's close to popping because people are fed up.
Yeah. They are fed up.
Rent is unaffordable. Totally Electricity bills are out of control. Now all of a sudden the media is catching on to greedflation, which we've been talking about for the last 2 years.
For a long time, exactly.
It wasn't in the beginning. It was a supply chain, but then it was just corporations ripping people off under the lie of inflation. Groceries are still very high right now. Insurance is high. During COVID, this hasn't got a lot of attention, but like they did predatory home mortgages in 2008 and 2009, they did predatory car loans at the beginning of COVID, which is now fucking people. And whether fair or not, I can't put every single one of those things on Biden. That's a lazy take. It's not all because of Joe Biden. There's global reasons for some of it. But at the end of the day, he's a president. And I think that there were things he could have done, putting aside Gaza and Israel. Listen, in 1962, JFK, before the CIA offed him, when U.S. Steel was price fixing and raising costs, President Kennedy said, "All right, I'm pulling your submarine contracts, and I'm going to give it to steel companies that aren't jacking up rates, unfairly." And U.S. Steel lowered their prices. Biden could have done that with the fossil fuckers. The United States government gives fossil fuel companies $15 billion in free subsidies. I repeat, $15 billion in free money a year. They give Wall Street, Big Pharma, Silicon Valley, all of the industries who don't need it, get subsidies, including the military industrial complex. Biden sent them kind letters asking them to lower their prices.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Okay? It's ridiculous. Meanwhile, they say we can't afford any sort of single payer healthcare system, which the country sorely needs. Our infrastructure is crumbling. We can't afford to take that. And we send billions and billions of dollars. I understand why people are angry about that. By the way, I just sent Colin this United States Census Bureau. Low-income renters spent larger share of income on rent in 2020-21. If you want to put up this chart when you have a second, I think it really kind of highlights the income inequality that we're talking about.
Right.
The lowest income quintile had the largest number, 10.8 million of cost burden rented occupied households, which climbed from 85.5% in 2019 to 87.3% in 2021. The numbers were even more striking for the severely cost burdened, with a substantial increase in renters in the lowest income quintile paying more than half of their income for rent. In 2021, 65% of renter-occupied households in the lowest income quintile were severely cost burdened, with an increase of over 500 households from 60.9% in 2019. I mean, this is crazy, Jordan. Look at these numbers.
Right. I also want to point out.
How can you look at that and say the economy's good?
Want to point out Washtenaw County, which is basically Ann Arbor. Ann Arbor is about an hour from Flint, mostly white, fairly well off. It's not just Arab Americans, young people, progressives. Right now in Washtenaw County, it's 24% uncommitted. So again, Ann Arbor's fairly wealthy. So the fact that it's a quarter of the vote is uncommitted in a fairly well-to-do suburb is not good. Again, that's Washtenaw County, which has Ann Arbor, and I mean, it could go down. It's only 12% of the vote total, but the fact that specific counties
right out of the gate, yeah.
Right. So we'll see. But again, the fact that also just mentally, the fact that like the political pundits of this and that, like, well, voters are sending him a message. What message do you need other than 30,000 innocent people have been killed? That's not collateral damage. I mean, anyone who says that.
So what do they actually believe? Do they think that, though? I mean, how do they justify this in their minds? I'm asking a serious question here. How do you look at what's going on there and say, it's fine? Like, how does that happen? What kind of a disconnect has to occur in your brain?
Right.
Like, literally, does Biden really think this is okay?
I don't know what he thinks, but this is also somebody who 2003, after it was abundantly clear that the Iraq war was horrible, after a lot of Americans had turned against it, Biden was giving, speeches at think tanks supporting President Bush and saying the cost was worth it. You could say, well, that was, 20 years ago or whatever, but
that was definitely not worth it.
You really think he's changed that much? And again,
No.
I think it is a very clear difference in the concern of life. There is more weight among Biden and others put on Jews and Israelis than there are Palestinians. That's just very clear. And frankly, Tina, the elephant in the room, I did a video on it. It got a lot of views because it's frankly the truth. You could, there's some who might say this is anti-Semitic, but you just got to follow the money. Bottom line is Biden last weekend was in San Francisco and other parts of California doing mega fundraisers with some of the most pro-Israel Zionistic donors in America. Haim Saban, who ripped off the power. Yeah, Saban, who ripped off the Power Rangers from, I believe, Japan. Billionaire. He wasn't at the fundraiser because he had COVID, but there were 3 fundraisers hosted by Saban. He, I believe, is one of the top donors in Hillary Clinton's political career. One of the top donors to Bill Clinton, Obama, Harry Reid, all of them. He's a mega donor and he's super duper pro-Israel. He was criticizing.
He used to co-sponsor pro-Israel stuff with not Sam. Who's the right-winger guy that's super? I want to say Adelson, but that's not right. Adelson. Is it? Yes, that guy. Adelson. They used to do it together. So it was the right guy and the left guy doing a co.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, the flag behind me for a reason. You think Biden, who it's not just Biden, all the Democrats, their number one, love is money and fundraisers, and they think they need to outspend and outraise their opponent 2-3 to 1. You think he's calling for a ceasefire or, going to, give tough love to Israel when he's, sucking at the teat of Haim Saban. By the way, Jeffrey Katzenberg is Biden's co-chair of his campaign. You know who Jeffrey Katzenberg is?
He's
former
very Zionist,
former chairman of DreamWorks Animation. Just throwing it out there. Gave the Young Turks $20 million. Just got to say. That's just the truth. He gave the Young Turks $20 million. He's a co-chair to Biden's campaign. He was doing fundraisers for Biden over the weekend. So actions speak louder than words. Biden's going around fundraising with some of the top
What is okay? But
by the way,
what is a bridge too far for these guys? Seriously, Jordan, can we have that conversation? What is the bridge too far if you're a Zionist? At what point do you not see how insufferably disgusting what's happening is? Like, how I don't understand how they look at the same videos and things that we see and think it's fine. I don't understand this. I really don't.
Well, Haim Saban, by the way, was
Saban.
Sorry, he was sending stern letters to all the people that he buys off in 2018, the last round of Israel's bombing in Gaza. He sent it to a bunch of senators who, because Bernie Sanders put forth some type of bill to penalize Israel, and other senators had signed on to it. And Haim Saban sent a letter mostly to people who he has bought off, very angry that they signed on to it, giving humanitarian relief to Gaza. So this is who he is.
That is just
it's not a coincidence that this
hateful.
Biden is out there doing the sucking political dick for money. Sorry. While this is going on, you think he's going to call for a ceasefire? And to be fair, it's not just Biden. Pelosi for the last 30 years has been going around, fundraising. All the Democrats, all the Republicans. This is our political system. It's disgusting. But to me, follow the money. Why do you? Yes, I think he, in his own warped way, is a Zionist and friend of Israel. But
I don't get it.
They're taking legal bribes from the very people who would cut the checks if he got tough with Israel or cut money. So of course he's not going to. And that's a really fucked up, sick system. You cannot be making policy and political decisions that life is life and death because you're worried that Saban, whatever, is going to not fund you. But that is, I believe, what's really going on here. And by the way, Donald Trump also, sorry to my father who loves Donald Trump because he moved the embassy from.
That's why that was a really horrifying thing he did. He moved the embassy
my father, if Obama would have put an Israeli flag pin on, he would have voted. I said to my father, you're not voting in Israel, you're voting in America. He doesn't care. If he cares about Israel.
Even if you are in Israel, at some point you have to come to terms with how insane this is. Where does that end? I mean, do you really think it's okay to just continually steal everybody else's homes? I mean, you've already made a country, Israel. It exists. That's fine. But why do you have to keep going? This makes no sense to me. I mean, it's not making anybody safer. Even if, I'm saying if that is your viewpoint, like you're a Zionist and you believe this, that, and the other, at some point you must have the realization that what you're doing, going so far this way in this direction, makes you less safe. I mean, as witnessed by October 7th.
Right.
You cannot secure yourself this way. You can't.
Absolutely. With 14% of the total vote in Michigan, Uncommitted has surpassed the 2016 count of Uncommitted. So in 2016,
19,000. The margin was like around 10,000 that Trump won by. So this is so the
26. I don't know what the 2016 margin was for Uncommitted, but it's already surpassed it, and there's only 14% of the vote in. So that's pretty significant. And by the way, as it stands right now, I mean, you got 20,000 uncommitted votes with 15% in. It could get to 100,000. And again, Biden won Michigan by 150,000. So if you get 100,000 uncommitted, then you got to assume some of the Democrats that there were Michigan is a swing state. So there's people who voted for Obama that moved to Trump. There's people who voted for Trump in 2016 that moved back to Biden. Move back to the Democrats. So it's not going to only be uncommitted people that Biden might lose. It might be people that voted for Biden that go back to Trump for whatever reason, or, and then there's people who just say, sit out.
Sit out. We're not going to vote anymore. That is actually the biggest group of voters in the country at this point. You can lose an election by people just sitting out.
Right. Right.
And that is how Trump will win. If enough of the other voters decide, like, we don't like it, forget it, we're not voting.
I think this is a good point, Frankie, because Biden's obviously getting all the heat. I mean, Trump is very clear. I don't think Trump's a Zionist because I don't think Trump believes in anything other than Trump. But I think he's super duper pro-Israel.
Oh, he 100% is.
His daughter, I think his daughter converted to Judaism.
Hang on, people forget that he actually, remember Trump Heights? I'm going to have to remind everybody of this, I guess, going forward. He established an illegal settlement in the Golan Heights called Trump Heights. It was, like I want to say it was 2018 when he did this.
Right. By the way, Tina, unrelated to all of this, are you aware that Donald Trump buried Ivana on the 9th hole at his golf course in New Jersey?
No.
Donald Trump.
That is so weird.
Buried his first wife, Ivana, on the 9th hole at, I don't know the name of his golf course, but the 9th hole of his golf course, because in New Jersey, you get a tax break.
Oh my God. Oh my God. I can't stop.
For cemeteries. I am not shitting you.
Are you fucking kidding me?
So Ivana, if you ever want to, go play golf in Jersey at the Trump golf course, you could pay your. And
you could literally dance on her grave. Apparently, that is insane.
Yeah, it's just you can't make this shit up. But while we're waiting for more results, I want to play some more clips. Again, we've covered over 30 of these protests, and these are the voters on the streets. Sure, we've been covering New York and D.C., but it's not just people. The uncommitted sentiment is all over the country right now, particularly on Gaza and Israel, particularly among younger people, Arab Americans. To be clear, there's a lot of Jewish people out there protesting with Jewish Palestinians.
Yeah.
Yes. Colin, whatever order you have, let's play some of the stuff we've covered at the protest.
Do you think Biden's support for Israel will cost him the presidency?
I do think so. Absolutely 100%. It's going to cost Biden the election. I think this is going to be the first year we actually see an independent president.
Oh, definitely. That's definitely where it's heading right now.
Yes, I think it will. Yes.
Oh my God, are you serious? I was at the mosque yesterday, Friday mosque. There was literature all over about the Green Party.
Yes. A lot of, yes, 100%.
The younger generation supports Palestine. They don't support Israel. It's over for him. Every person that dies and every new person that's born, his support goes down. It's over.
Definitely he's going to lose it this time just because of that.
We're not voting for Joe Biden. You keep this up, you're going to lose this election.
I think it's very possible, especially considering the electoral math, like in Michigan. I think he's really in danger there. So I live in Connecticut, so it probably doesn't matter how I vote, but I probably can't in good conscience vote for him, so I think he's definitely in trouble.
Do you think his support for Israel will cost him the presidency this year?
He's going to lose big time. Because look at all those people, they are all against him. And look at the nation, too, Yeah, it just, all innocent, those kids, they are innocent. They have, they have the right to live.
There's a lot of anger out there. I get it.
Yeah.
Jordan, all it takes is for all these individuals to just not cast a vote for president. And we did see a big chunk of Michigan voters in the last election do exactly that. They voted for down ballot measures, down ballot offices, and left that one blank.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I'll say another thing. Again, I say this over and over. We've talked about it before, but we'll continue covering these protests. But I truly, truly wish some of these folks that are organizers and activists, I'm not trying to mansplain you or, whatever splain you, but Jesus, if even like 10% of these protesters out there started taking some economic actions outside of just protesting with your feet on the ground, which is important. But if all these people out there, there's been tens of thousands of people protesting around the country, worldwide, but specifically in America on this issue. Obviously, we saw George Floyd, the protests in 2020. But if these organizers started trying to come together to economically protest, I'm not talking about, BDS is one thing, but I'm talking about strategic, Amazon, big box retailers, pro corporate banking, targeting, companies that are helping fund the weapons for Israel and name your country.
Speaking of,
I'm telling you, Tina, if they started doing some strategic economic boycotts, within that, you're definitely going to need a pot for mutual aid because you don't want to hurt the workers at Amazon and, others. You want to have a pot of money that goes to them. then you could actually yield some results, because Biden ain't running the show. It's the donors running the show. And if you hurt their ability to do stock buybacks, if you hurt their quarterly profits, if you hurt their dividends, then they start listening.
So speaking of, you mentioned arms systems, Ronnie Barkin, who I've interviewed a few times, we've had him on Status Coup. He's Israeli Jewish activist. He has just been found guilty. They broke into Elbit Systems in England. I don't know if you recall this.
I don't. Tell me.
All right. So him and another Israeli Jew and a couple of Palestinians went up to the UK, broke into the Elbit Systems arm manufacturing plant there, destroyed all the machinery, painted Free Palestine on the wall.
Oh, yeah, I heard of that. Yep.
So they were just, now found guilty this week.
Okay. Interesting. All right. So we're still at 14%, over 20,000 votes for Uncommitted. So that's 15% votes. Like I said, 30% in Wayne County. It seems to be moving fairly slow, but it's moving. But what economic option? How do we get involved? Status Coup News. We want to help. Listen, I mean, I would say this. At most of these events John Frieda is covering, there's about 1,000, 2,000 people out there. A couple hundred people select Amazon, for example. We're not shopping at Amazon for a month, and that latches on to a couple hundred more, couple thousand, then 1,000, social media, this and that. Let me tell you something. Jeff Bezos and the bosses there, they're going to be talking to their employees in Washington, D.C., the politicians. Then you can't have a general strike overnight, but you start with targeted strikes. Not just Amazon. You could target a specific bank. But if you get thousands of people and then social media buzz, that latches on. People start canceling their, whether it's banks or this and that, that creates buzz. I don't necessarily agree with the reason that the Canadian truckers and all those people were protesting up there, but they started blocking some bridges.
Yeah.
There was an economic component to it.
Making some noise, yeah.
And it brought Canada to its knees. I didn't agree with the reason. I was, that's just me.
Yeah, I'm not an anti-vaxxer, so I
exactly. But at the end of the day, the only thing that works here, it seems, is strikes and leveraging your economic power. But you just see nonstop protests and people moving around the same blocks, same signs, chanting the same shit. They'll let you protest. If you get too rowdy, they'll use their military, i.e. the NYPD, the LAPD, the Chicago PD, to crack some skulls. That's basically it. But I'm not saying it's easier. It's definitely easier said than done. You can't just have a general strike tomorrow. But I don't see a lot of economic planning. And I don't really think, bottom line, 80% of America, wants tighter gun laws. That hasn't passed in Congress.
That's insane too.
We could go down the list of the majorities of Americans that want certain policies. It doesn't pass. So we are not we might technically be a representative democracy, but
right.
by our
there's
government
definitely
actions,
disconnect here. Exactly. When popular policy positions that most Americans want can't get done for year after year after year after year, there's a serious disconnect. But this is what's driving the anger in the country.
Correct. We're now at 21,000 votes for Uncommitted.
Wow.
At 15% of the vote in. Wayne County just went down to 11% Uncommitted. So it went from 30% to 11%. So that's what more votes coming in.
Yeah,
so
that's
Biden's
probably going to ping pong around all night.
Yeah, so that's Biden, 85% in Wayne County. Excuse me. But yeah, Biden's at 85%, Uncommitted at 11%. But let me look. What's Genesee at? That's Flint. Oh, by the way, Tina, I did a video while the focus was on Michigan, pointing out that there's other genocides happening here right in America, right in Michigan. I give you the Flint water crisis. I give you the Kalamazoo toxic gas crisis. Right. Sadly, another poor woman lost a 17-year-old daughter in her community next to the graphic packaging paper mill that is literally releasing toxic levels of gas into a poor Black community. So she lost her 17-year-old daughter, and over the weekend, she lost her 33-year-old son severe asthma, severe COPD, all because of this graphic packaging paper mill that is releasing toxic levels of hydrogen sulfide and other chemicals that Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer, which the New York Times is doing adoring puff pieces, and the media is saying, oh, maybe Gretchen, if Biden drops out, maybe it'll be Gretchen or Gavin. She literally helped them expand this paper mill that's poisoning a community. Colin and I could tell you because we were there and we both got sick just standing next to the paper mill.
Yeah, no, I remember that.
Even a block away, we were doing interviews and we both had splitting headaches. So imagine living there. Then you have Flint, Michigan, still has contaminated water.
Right.
10 years later, April is 10 years. Still nobody is in prison. Then we got East Palestine, where a corporation, a multi-billion-dollar railroad, just nuked a town a year ago. And it just came out, Tina, this is not The Onion, okay? And this is not Austin Powers' Dr. Evil. This is real life. After the East Palestine derailment and after the chemical detonation, the CEO of Norfolk Southern, 37% raise. His salary went up 37%.
Are you kidding me?
I am not kidding
insane. You. See, this is everything that's wrong in the country right now. Is that right there? That is insane.
I don't want to. I'm not. This is not a genocide Olympics. Obviously, what's going on in Palestine is horrible, and I'm not. They're not the same thing. But these are slow-moving genocides happening right here in the good old USA. Right. Because you don't tell me poisoning a community and then covering it up and leaving them to slowly die while declaring it's all better is not a genocide. Don't tell me that having a toxic paper mill that is releasing 30 different types of toxic gases right into a poor Black community, where, by the way, in 2015, Tina, this is scandalous. 2015, 1,900 Black children under the age of 1 died in Kalamazoo.
Wow.
The majority of Black children live in that neighborhood next to the paper mill, compared to 300 white kids. So almost 2,000 white kids under the age of 1 died. They all live in the neighborhood of the paper mill. 300 white kids died. Then the Michigan Health Department just took the numbers off the website. And then when reporters have put in Freedom of Information requests for the updated numbers of infant mortality in Kalamazoo, Kalamazoo government is quoting them $50,000.
Are you kidding me?
Let me restate that, folks.
Wait, a $50,000 FOIA request, that would be like boxes and boxes and boxes and boxes and boxes and boxes of paper. That is insane.
In Kalamazoo, 5 times as many Black children died in the year 2015, so 9 years ago, than white children under the age of 1. The Black children predominantly live on the north side of Kalamazoo, where this paper mill that Gretchen Whitmer helped expand, knowing all the problems, knowing all the complaints, she helped them expand. So almost 2,000 Black kids under the age of 1 died in this neighborhood in 2015. Then they took the numbers off the website. And when reporters have put in Freedom of Information requests to get the updated numbers, 2016, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, they've been quoted as much as $50,000 for the information. I mean, you can't make it up. You got railroad companies nuking a small town. You get a raise. You got the America sending, by the way, not New York Times, but like independent outlets have done really great journalism. Israel has been dropping 2,000-pound bombs on Gaza. And there is no precise precision targeting when you're dropping 2,000-pound bombs.
Exactly.
But a lot of those, and a lot of them are basically being directed by artificial intelligence. So they're just dropping bombs and asking questions later.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. So, and America is supplying a lot of the weapons. And I don't know if Colin, if you have the clip, but we played the clip in a live stream a week or two. Biden basically was outwardly bragging that, hey, for the weapons we're sending Ukraine, the weapons we're sending Israel, that's creating jobs right here in America. So that's our jobs program, killing people abroad.
Yeah.
I mean, at least one thing I respected about Trump, he was open. Don't leave Iraq without taking the oil. Take the oil. And Biden kind of openly said, it creates jobs here. I mean, And part of that is because we have thinned out American manufacturing of useful things like steel, cars.
Exactly.
Why during COVID did we have no masks? Did we have no gowns? Did we have no shields? Did we have no ventilators? Because we offshored all manufacturing to other countries. So, yeah. All right. 16% of the vote. I mean, we're not going to stay on all night because at this rate we'd be on till 2 a.m. But 16% of the 16% of the vote. Uncommitted is still at 15%, 22,000 votes. Let's play a couple more clips, Colin, of some of the reporting we've done. Get your reaction after.
I'm a Jew. My grandfather and my uncle and other family members were killed in the Holocaust. I know what genocide is. I know how it tears families apart and how awful it is. And as a Jew, as a proud Jew, I stand with the Palestinian people against Israeli crimes.
And what would be your message to Biden, who's here today at this fundraiser?
Ceasefire now. Stop all funding to Israel. Free Palestine.
I'm very proud, as a Jew and an anti-Zionist, that these kinds of demonstrations are ongoing. And I hope they won't stop, because there's genocide in Gaza, subsidized by U.S. taxpayer money on behalf of a fanatical, almost fascistic sect in Tel Aviv that doesn't care about Palestinian life and is hell-bent on destroying Palestine. Not just Gaza. They want to get rid of Palestinians. And they called it Judenrein in Germany, throwing out the Jews from Germany. But now we quote unquote have turned it around. We're throwing out the Palestinians.
Poignant.
I mean, both of them were really incredible.
Yeah.
Really powerful. You know, that's one thing I think. I mean, yes, this is to kind of like brag. And by the way, it's not cheap to do over 30 protests in New York and DC. Obviously, we pay John.
Yeah.
We got to pay to broadcast. Our live view costs between $500 and $1,000 per month. That's how we broadcast, through the live view device. So support us if you appreciate, because CNN hasn't been there. No. MSNBC has not been at these protests. Even local media show up for like 5 minutes and leave. There's not a lot of independent outlets out there. Well, actually, there's no independent outlets out there. It's usually us. I'm proud to say. So thank you for those of you who support us as a member. If you're already a member, you could leave a super chat, donations, statuscoup.com/donate. But I'll say, I think what's really been powerful about this is, you know, I got a lot of people in my life that are pro-Israel, Zionistic. My father, I mean, I haven't been shy. I have family in Israel. My wife's Israeli. Right. She does not agree with everything Israel is doing.
Right.
But I will say I've been encouraged to see how many Jewish people are out there, because I think we need to break. I mean, frankly, there's a lot of propaganda that from a young age, Jewish people are fed about Israel and about Judaism and, you know, all that. And a lot of that propaganda, part of it is kind of whitewashing that Palestinians even exist. I mean, when you live in Israel, the roads are built so that you're driving with no even visibility to Gaza, or, you know, you got walls and this and that. They basically build it so that you are completely unaware. It's just a cognitive dissonance of what the folks in Gaza, West Bank are going through in Israel. And in America, you're kind of taught. I mean, I'm proud to be Jewish. I'm not like religious. I'm not anti-Israel per se. I'm not theoretically against Jews having a homeland. I am against Jews having a homeland if it means slaughtering a whole nother being.
Nation of people,
because what makes us so different from the Germans then, and what they did, you know? But I don't know. I don't know the answer, because I think a lot of young people are kind of permanently done with the Democratic Party, regardless of what Biden does. And I think this is bigger than politics, frankly, because I think
Yeah, I do too.
the Palestinian issue, I think, is kind of interconnected to a lot of other civil rights issues in America. The indigenous rights, BLM, the Dreamers. I mean, even the climate movement. A lot of that is led by young people, but there's a lot of, older people that are part of that too. But I think there's just kind of, I don't know if I'm using the right word, but conflagration or something, unison of movements that
Conflation?
are out there.
Oh, you mean are they kind of melding together into one group?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm a
been a
90-year-old
long day.
Jew. I'm a 90-year-old Jew, and I wake up 3 times now to peace. So excuse me. But conflagration. I think I was saying.
No. Now I've lost it.
I don't know. Somebody can make
melding together.
Yes, molding together. But I honestly, the pundits will, have their hot takes on this, but I just right now feels very 26 conflagration. Yes.
There you go.
Thank you, Carne Verde. I'm getting 2016 vibes here, Tina.
Oh,
I'm really
100%.
getting 2016
I'm getting
vibes.
2016 vibes too. I mean, I will never forget the fact that Hillary Clinton could not be bothered with going back to campaign in a swing state that she lost her own primary in. That is hubris, and I love that he just put it up on the screen. It's hubris. It's like they think that it's enough to say, "Have you seen the other guy?" And that's not enough anymore, and it's certainly not enough with the kids, especially post 2016. Whitmer, one of the things she said about this uncommitted movement was, what you typically hear from all of these establishment Democrats. Well, it isn't the time for the party to fracture. Well, when is the time? You guys said you keep saying that, and things get markedly worse every election cycle. It's never the time, but it keeps getting worse. So I think people are tired of hearing that. It falls on deaf ears. It's like the boy who cried wolf, right? Oh, you're saying what now again? Yeah, you said that before. Yeah, you said that before. People are fed up. And now we're really actually staring at a possibility of a fascist president coming into power.
And I'll say, honestly, I mean, vote for, I'm not going to tell people how to vote. I don't think that's my place, but I will tell you, Trump is concerning, but I think you got to look at the people that are around Trump. Because I genuinely think Trump, if he's elected again, part of it will be a revenge tour and, settling scores with enemies. But 100%. A lot of the horrible stuff that was done under Trump was based on the people around him, like Stephen Miller, John Bolton, Rex Tillerson.
But he agrees with all of those individuals, and he'll bring them back into power.
Right. That's what I'm saying. So Trump, I don't think on his own is really that competent. But the people around him, I think it's quite possible you have a vice president, Kristi Noem, from South Dakota, who, has done ads of her, I think, with a bazooka gun. Or something Marjorie Taylor Greene in the cabinet, or or this, or
stop,
or Stephen Miller's coming back. So
no, I got you. I agree with you.
Biden's pretty bad, but it could get a lot worse. It really could get a lot worse. Because if Trump is reelected, you have to imagine his mindset.
It's just insane.
I am Teflon. I stole nuclear. I stored nuclear programs. I stole, documents with human spies.
God knows who he'll pardon. I mean,
I tried to overturn the government, et cetera, and nothing sticks. So
nothing sticks. I don't know. It's just insane that this is where we're at. We have two candidates that are much too old to be running for office, in my opinion. I'm sorry, and I don't think I'm being ageist there, but they've demonstrated with their speeches and their actions that they are not running on all cylinders at this point. And that's just something that happens with age. It's going to happen to all of us. It's happens to me, happens to you. I just don't think that somebody in a compromised position should be in that position of power. But here we are.
17% of the vote. Uncommitted is at 15%. So 23,000 votes for uncommitted.
Biden's thank you, 80%. Frankie. Hang on. They have old world thinking. That's exactly it, isn't it? this is why you hear these axiomatic statements that made sense 25 years ago, and you're sitting there going like, yeah, nobody thinks that way anymore. That's
Right.
definitely part of it. Thank you for pointing that out. That's sort of what I was trying to get at, I guess.
And somebody sent me this, but I lost it. The
sorry,
Dearborn
my
mayor.
bad.
No, that's okay. The Dearborn mayor had a pretty powerful thing to say. All right, Colin, let's play another
Yes.
clip.
Bernie is still cogent. Age isn't the issue. Mental decline is. Yes, I agree with that. That's why I was mean. I don't mean to be ageist. I'm saying that both of these individuals have certainly shown that they have mental decline happening.
I've seen you at many of these protests before. Can you talk about the NYPD's tactics of what they've been doing to peaceful protesters?
Well, I was arrested this past Saturday. The police is getting worse and worse. They're getting more violent with us. I don't know what's happening, since when they started doing that to us. We're pacific protesting in here. We don't want to get any trouble. We just want to let our people, we want to let our government, that we are against against genocide. But for some reason, every time that we go outside, in the first half an hour, we get arrested. We get arrested. Before it was with the sound system, there was more stickers to put on the walls, and now it's walking on the street. It doesn't make sense. We just want to protest in peace. That's all we want. And I hope the NYPD understand we don't want to commit any crime. We're here protesting in peace. That's all we want.
That's your First Amendment right.
That's our First Amendment right. This is in the Constitution. We have the right to protest it and everything. It's our right. We understand that we got to be pacific, and that's what we're doing. We don't want trouble. We don't want anybody to get in trouble. We just want to be in peace and make sure that Schumer, Pelosi, Biden, and all our politicians, they need to know that we're not going to support them for November. Genocide has to stop now. There is no other choice. It has to stop now.
And that guy is back out there after getting arrested. So props to him. Also, welcome new Status Coup member Syed just signed up. Welcome, Syed. Daniel signed up. So 2 new members. Welcome, welcome. Sign up if you want to support actual living, breathing, on the ground journalism. Like I said, we have covered over 30 ceasefire now protests in New York City and DC. We have been all over the country. I'm going back to Flint soon. We were just in East Palestine, and these things cost a lot of money. This is what I was talking about. So this is the mayor of Dearborn. He wrote, "For our grandfather Khaled and the soul of his soul Reem, for the 100,000 killed, wounded, and missing, for the hope of a free Palestine, vote uncommitted on the Democratic presidential primary ballot." And he showed his ballot. So obviously he has lost people in his family. Frankly, I was talking to somebody, a reporter in Dearborn who I know, and she is covering this Uncommitted campaign. She said she talked to 10 people. Every single one of them has lost family members in Gaza. So it's widespread among Dearborn residents that they are losing loved ones in Gaza. Also wanted to show this. This is from a Detroit News reporter. By the way, she sucks on Flint, but she's horrible. But at least I'll give her this. Yes, you do suck, Beth, and you basically regurgitate state propaganda about the Flint water crisis. But anyway, she wrote, so far, roughly 21,000 people have voted uncommitted Democratic ballots, outstripping organizers' 10,000 vote goal. So that's pretty big. They set a goal of 10,000. They're already at 21,000. From what I could tell, that is with few to no votes added yet from Wayne County, let alone Dearborn. So that was about 15 minutes ago. And she's basically saying the majority of the votes from Dearborn and Wayne County have not come in yet. Dearborn is the Arab American capital of America, basically.
So it may be the case that NBC, that initial 100K projection that they got from their sources, accurate.
100,000 sounds wishful.
Sounds high, but I mean
75 to 80 sounds possible to me.
Okay.
It just went up basically to 25,000. So yeah, the fact that it's already this high without the majority of votes coming in from Dearborn and Wayne County is pretty hefty. Pretty hefty, I would say. And by the way, new member Abaya, hope I pronounced that right. So thank you. Abaya just signed up. And to be clear, I hate to, brush off our shoulder here. We are the only, let me strongly say, glasses off. We are the only independent on the ground outlet consistently covering protests like this. We have been in New York. We have been in D.C. I've been to Flint. Next trip is 20 times, not on this issue, but on the Flint water crisis, which is still going on. Tina was in Georgia twice last year covering the protests against Cop City. We've been to East Palestine, Ohio,
the
5
UAW
times.
strikes.
We covered the first 25 days of the UAW because YouTube is a criminal
every single day.
because YouTube is a criminal fucking cartel. They basically hide us most of the time and algorithmically suppress us and others. So a lot of people are suddenly finding us through our coverage now, particularly of this issue. But we've been out there for 5 years, particularly on the ground, without money from Sheldon Adelson. May he rot without
that
money.
Was the guy's name I couldn't remember. Sheldon Adelson.
Without money from Haim Saban.
Saban.
Without money from Haim Saban. Without money from Jeffrey Katzenberg, without money from George Soros, without money from name your villain, Democrat, Republican mega donor, our funding comes from you. So if you got 16 cents a day, that's what $5 a month is. 16 cents a day, that would equate to a burnt cup of Grande Vente, I guess. Starbucks coffee. So please, l'chaim, as they say. I want to make a point too. I do want to make a point. We should say there are still innocent Israeli hostages, and they are being held captive by Hamas, but also because the Prime Minister of Israel
won't do what it takes to get them out. I agree.
There does not seem to be a priority among the Prime Minister of Israel because there's been protests. Insane. There have been protests in Israel,
by
like pushing him to do what you need to do to release the hostages. We don't care.
Ceasefire and make a trade. I mean, they're holding young Palestinian prisoners. Some of them are, really young.
Right. But I also, I don't want to lose sight of there are also innocent Israelis in this too. I understand there's not a lot of appetite for that because rightfully so, the focus needs to be the Palestinians. But, it's not Israeli, 10-year-olds' fault of all this and kidnapped and grandmas and, so there's a lot of innocent people in this. And we have, I don't want to say Trump, like there's bad people on both sides. Netanyahu is a bad person. I don't support what Hamas did, but we want all innocent people released. I mean, that's just this is senseless what is going on. And the genie's out of the bottle. So like I said, Tina, even if there's a ceasefire tomorrow, money's cut. I don't think that necessarily,
No, there needs to be systemic change at this point.
I agree.
We've been building towards this place for well over a decade.
Tina or Colin, bullshit for a minute. I got to get water.
But okay, bullshit for a minute. What am I going to bullshit about? All right. So I do want to bring up Elbit Systems protests that happened. So there was a group that went up. I mentioned this earlier in the live stream. They traveled from Israel-Palestine area up to the UK, and they broke into the Elbit Systems arms manufacturing facility there, destroyed the machines, painted Free Palestine on the wall. They dumped red paint all over the floors and in the front. And this was a group that was comprised of 2 Jewish Israelis and I think 4 Palestinians that went up there. So finally, a couple years later, now they've had the guilty verdicts that have come in. So awaiting sentencing to see what happens here. But these are individuals that obviously were very motivated to make a change to try to stop the systemic stuff. And this happened before this last bombing campaign started, before what happened on October 7th. So these were folks that were already deeply involved in the Palestinian rights cause there in Israel. So my point to this is there is definitely activism that occurs inside the state of Israel from the left that our news just doesn't really report about, doesn't care to report about, because it doesn't fit into, the American narrative. Absolutely. Oh, you're back from your water?
I had a jalapeno earlier and I'm dying.
Oh, is that what? Okay, I was wondering what.
So, just past 25,000 for the uncommitted. So I will say, I think they probably strategically set it low, keep expectations low. So they set it at 10,000. So 25,000 already votes for uncommitted. But it does look, it's only 18% of the vote and they're already at 25%. And from multiple reporters I'm seeing, the majority, most of the vote from Dearborn is not in. So
I think that's
might
why
be
it's
right.
going to make a big, I mean, that'll make a big difference right there, I think.
Right.
That'll push it way up.
Let me see. In 2000, the vote difference in 2016 was about 11,000 between Trump and Clinton. So 25,000 just uncommitted and rising. So this is not boding well. I mean, and you know what's sad, Tina?
Yeah.
The coverage will be, let's say it gets, we won't stay on all night, but let's say it gets to 75,000, 80,000. The coverage isn't going to be about the genocide in Gaza. It's going to be about the electoral ramifications and, what can Biden do to save himself? And, what can the Republicans seize on this? It's just going to be horse race, not about innocent people being slaughtered. And by the way, we're not even mentioning there's basically no real working hospitals left.
No, it's insane.
In Gaza. There's no working hospitals. There's significant famine. Pretty much we're still seeing, TikTok videos of IDF and Israeli soldiers dancing around and mocking Palestinians. You see TikTok videos of IDF soldiers with like a line of Palestinians with bags over their head. So there's just awful things happening.
It is awful.
And that's why I say, forget the political ramifications. I don't really think it's sustainable. When you think about the George Floyd protests, for example, I don't want to say they were for nothing because obviously they were historic, but things basically went back to the way they were, and Biden gave $32 billion more to police, right? So in the moment, you think, oh, it can't go back to the way it was, like the genie's out of the bottle, but then it does. But in this case, I really don't know how it could truly go back to the status quo because this is global now. I mean, many countries have protested. We're seeing other countries now cut their weapons shipments.
Right.
And other kind of type of business shipments to Israel. You've seen port blockades, obviously the Houthi attacks. So I don't, even if there's a ceasefire, I don't see it just going back to...
There's got to be change. So Colin, I just emailed you this protesters convicted of criminal damage and burglary after Elbit Systems UK break-in. I don't know, I emailed it to you. So just to give you an update on this, a group of protesters have been found guilty of breaking into the head office of an international defense technology firm and causing thousands of pounds worth of damage. So it says international defense technology firm. It's an Israeli defense technology firm, to be clear.
Got it.
So Stavit Sinai 38, Ronnie Barkin, who we've had here on Status Coup. I've had him on my podcast as well. Eliza Sarson Dement, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. Archie Sadler, Flinton Owens, Harvey Georgeson, and Paul Short used sledgehammers to smash windows and gain entry to the head office of Elbit Systems UK Bristol on Sunday, May 15th, 2022. While inside, they caused thousands of pounds of damage to equipment and spray painted messages such as Free Palestine onto the window blinds. The group of 7 were today each convicted 1 count of burglary and 1 count of criminal damage at Bristol Crown Court, and they will be sentenced on March 22nd, 2024. Ronnie is an Israeli citizen, by the way. So he's going to be sentenced in this UK court for this.
Got it.
Do you think Israel's going to do anything to get him out?
No. I doubt it.
No, that's what I'm saying because,
So,
but I mean, Ronnie's very committed to the cause. He's one example of somebody that's really put himself on the line to change things.
By the way, the uncommitted vote in Michigan at 24,000 already surpassed the last 3 presidential primaries in Michigan. So like I said, uncommitted has been on the ballot in Michigan for many cycles, but 24,000 votes already has surpassed the last 3 cycles combined. Also, if anyone cares, not that anyone expected different, but Trump won in Michigan, the Michigan primary. So Nikki Haley continues her whatever this is, waiting for conviction campaign. Wow, thank you, Vazato, $100. You are the only white. You are the only white media outlet I financially support. Why? Thank you.
Wow, that is a huge, huge super chat. Oh my gosh, thank you so much. So appreciate
much deserved. You do incredible work on the domestic front. Thank you immensely. Thank you very much. I've never really thought of myself as a white outlet per se, but it just so happens most of the stories we cover on the ground happen to be Black communities or minority communities, because that's where so much of the fuckery and oppression and horrible things happen. I mean, obviously there's plenty of poor white people I've met in Flint and Detroit and other places. So poverty these days doesn't particularly have one color, but the environmental genocide in particular and many other types of horrible injustices definitely are skewed towards Black, brown, indigenous people.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate that. There's a lot of people that support us financially that don't necessarily have the money. I get messages from people all the time, like, I'm on, Social Security or something, and I give you my last, and I'm like, I appreciate that, but don't give me your last anything. Like, if you can't afford it, don't, we need it, but I don't want to put anyone in a bad position. But I really appreciate if we're your only white folks. I definitely look pretty pale and white under these lights, but
I'm definitely pale.
Yes. Thank you. All right. So 27,000 votes. So yeah, it looks like it's on target at 20% of the votes in to get to that.
Wow.
Potentially 100,000. Colin, let's play some more clips, because we have all these powerful moments from our on the ground coverage. You're not going to see this on CNN, MSNBC, but you will see it here.
NYPD is coming over, harassing media, everybody. So what they want, they're trying to pack everybody onto the sidewalk behind us, but there's nowhere to go. Sidewalk.
Show the camera for the sidewalk. Let's go walk there.
The sidewalk's overcrowded.
So as you speak,
it's a hazard.
Look, there's space right there. You can go right there.
Yeah, but there's no reason to.
Just explain that to the camera.
Let me speak to your commander.
You will.
Where is he?
When they come.
Can you call him over here?
I can't call him right now. Everybody's busy.
Now, what's the reason why we can't be right here?
We were told to put everybody at the sidewalk. That's all.
But what is the reason, though? I know you were told that, but do you know the reason?
I was told.
Unbelievable. A piece of paper.
Yeah, the police are out of control. But
Out of
this is
control.
what, Tina, you've seen it. And I mean, LA, the police are fucking, might as well be the mafia. But
They've been a little chill lately, actually, for some reason.
Really? Huh. Must be the wildfires, smoke inhalation. But the police are out of control, and they do not act that way to the pro-Israel folks.
No,
heckling.
never. They don't.
No.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Speaking of, I wanted to show this, and I want to be clear. This is not a representation of all Jewish people, because all Jewish people are not dicks like this. But we have covered several protests where typically old white people pass by the ceasefire now protesters and heckle them or say some bigoted stuff. This exchange was particularly disgusting.
Palestine could kiss my ass. Palestine could kiss my ass. What a baby killer! Get killed and fucking kids up. Shut back off. Shut back the fuck off.
Fuck you, because you're rich.
No, I
got
ain't
money
rich.
and powerful. Fuck you, billionaire.
Fuck
you.
Sir, are you a
Innocent
Vietnam vet?
people. I don't give a
Are you a
fuck.
Vietnam vet?
Israel or Palestine.
Are you
It's about the
used to know
rich.
better?
Not
You should
about
know-
the rich fucking Jews and the rich Palestinians don't give a fuck about their own little
No, hold
poor
on.
people.
The Jews are calling for this. Let's be very clear.
Well,
The
that may
Zionists
be
are calling
right.
for this.
That's right. But when they go around killing little babies, that's wrong.
But Israel has killed 13,000 kids.
For what?
What's that?
How'd they kill 13,000 kids?
They're bombing them.
Yeah? And what they do October 7th? What Hamas does October 7th?
Why can't we talk about Israel? What Israel's doing?
Why don't we talk about Hamas, what they're doing? Why don't we talk about that?
They're just going to keep going.
So that was one individual. I mean, again, you can say Hamas did terrible things on October 7th. I'm not afraid to say that.
That doesn't mean you can bomb 13. I'm not afraid to say that either. I don't agree with what Hamas did, but I don't think that's the point at what they're making is like, we've now killed all these innocent children. How does that justify it? It doesn't. This is not defense. Anybody is like, my favorite line is when these politicians are like, Israel has the right to defend itself. Israel has the right to defend itself. Like, how many times are you going to repeat that phrase over and over again? We can all see this isn't defense.
It's crazy. I also want to point out right now, Wayne County, I've been focused on that, which has Dearborn. Wayne County has gone up to 25% of the vote is uncommitted. So that is where Dearborn is, and 25% of the vote is now uncommitted in Wayne County. So as more votes come in from Wayne County, which is Dearborn, Detroit, I believe you're going to see the uncommitted vote there in particular is going to keep going up. And the total vote of uncommitted is now 29,000 basically. So almost 30,000 with 20% of Michigan voters, 20% of precincts in. So not good at math, Tina, but if it's 30,000 votes with 20% in, if you extrapolate that, that would pass 100,000.
Yeah, I mean, as crazy as that initial NBC article sounded to me, it's like, I think maybe they're right.
And interestingly enough, you might have, I don't know about record, but you might have an increase in turnout overall in the primaries without a real challenger.
Right.
The Michigan primary might have bigger turnout now than 2020, kind of apples and oranges because 2020 was COVID. So it was depressed turnout anyway. But you might have significantly high turnout for a primary that's not competitive because there's not a real challenger to Biden, thanks to the DNC and the media that helped cancel the primary. But you get my drift. You might have significant increase in turnout on this particular issue. So that's definitely interesting. Let me show, this was on CNN today. They interviewed Arab American, I believe, state rep, but this was interesting. So let's play it.
Perspective now from one of the Michigan Democrats who is pushing for this uncommitted protest vote. We have with us State Representative Alabas Farhat. Alabas, thank you so much for being with us. What message are you trying to send President Biden by voting uncommitted?
Yeah, I want to make it clear that today's vote is an appeal to the White House. It is an appeal to President Biden to be the leader that we know he can, a leader that he promised the nation he would be in 2020 when he campaigned saying that he was going to restore dignity and humanity to the White House. Right now, thousands of Michiganders are watching overseas, their loved ones dying, children starving to death, and they're hearing the screams of parents who are holding their children, their lifeless children. But right now, we're hoping to push the president on is secure a ceasefire now, and let's end the killing of innocent civilians overseas. Let's restore humanitarian aid. Right? Let's start working towards a lasting peace process. That's the appeal of Michigan voters today when they vote uncommitted.
In recent weeks, President Biden has gone further in publicly criticizing Benjamin Netanyahu's government and his policies, calling the IDF response over the top. He also reinstalled actions against settlers in the West Bank. Obviously, you would like to see him do more, so I'm wondering what specifically you would like to see him change in his approach to the Israeli leadership.
Look, I'm really glad that you honed it in on the Israeli leadership, because that's what this is, right? The Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, I think has actively worked against a lasting peace process. He's went out there and made statements saying that there can be no peace deal, or that they'd rather recover the hostages through force than through a ceasefire. The rhetoric of the Prime Minister of Israel has been damaging, I think, and quite frankly, it's led to the innocent civilians that have been murdered and killed right now. What I'd love to see from the White House is a recognition that, one, Benjamin Netanyahu is not a great actor to work with in this conflict. He is not somebody who I think has the best interest of not only the Israeli people, but the U.S. foreign policy broadly and at heart. He doesn't have that at heart. He's concerned that the moment this conflict ends, so too does his tenure as prime minister in Israel, because ultimately the burden falls on him for failing to one, keep Israel safe, but two, for failing to bring back the hostages on a timely matter when there's been deals and offers made.
I think he's right. The fact that he would prefer not to have a peaceful resolution to the hostage situation speaks volumes. And I think it goes back to what I said earlier in the broadcast, that he's part of the settler movement. That is his key support. And they want all of that land. They want all of Gaza to become part of Israel. And this was an opportunity for them to pursue that end game.
Well, we should be clear. They want all of historical Palestine to be part of Israel.
Yeah.
West Bank, Gaza,
Yeah.
all of Jerusalem.
All of it.
I mean, push them out to the sea if you have to. So, yep.
Yeah.
I agree. So yeah, we're almost at 30,000 uncommitted. So by all accounts, this has been a smashing success. The uncommitted campaign. Who knows? Maybe you'll see it, sprout in different ways. I don't know if uncommitted is on the ballot in other states, but there might be, some type of write-in campaigns elsewhere off of this.
Yeah. What do you think of that, Jordan? Could this be the election cycle where we do see a third party candidate actually get much more vote than we've seen previously, not the 1 or 2% that we see now?
Not a fan of him, but I think RFK might get more just because he has
more so than Jill Stein or who's running on the Libertarian. I don't even know. Cornel West is running. Yeah.
Yeah. RFK, it just was reported that his finance director left him. RFK. RFK, by the way, for all you who have been hoodwinked into thinking he's some progressive or
he's not
anti-establishment. He's a
Kennedy. How was he anti-establishment?
Yeah. He's going around doing mega fundraisers with all the worst of the worst too.
Of course.
He says he's a champion of the free market. Besides all this conspiracy cookie bullshit, which is dangerous, he is for what Israel's doing. He has defended Israel at every turn. He might be technically against the Ukraine war, but sure sounds like he's not opposed to war with Iran from the sounds of.
No, he's a warmonger.
I think a lot of people have been hooked on to RFK because he's strategically latched onto certain anti-establishment themes or
anti-vax. The only one I know is anti-vax. I think that's
being against Ukraine, which a lot of people are against Ukraine largely because Biden is for it. I mean, I'm not for giving Ukraine more money, but I think a lot of people that have latched onto this is because it happened under Biden, but the same.
Okay.
And they latch onto Republicans who are against Ukraine, but don't criticize the Republicans who want war with China and Iran and every other country known to man. But I think RFK might do better. I think, unfortunately, Cornel West and Jill Stein are pulling from each other. I think there's a small sliver of the third party leftist vote anyway. So the fact that they're both running, I don't think is great. Cornel West says he's going to be on about 15 to 20 ballots by middle of March. Jill Stein should be on about 40 to 45 ballots. But I don't I don't know why they would do significantly better than they have in the past, because it's the same media blackout.
Well, I think just people are fed up. I think they get their ballots and are like, I'm done with both of these major parties not listening to me. Screw it. You know, I mean, maybe because in the past, this lesser evil argument, I think, was somewhat effective for some folks, but I think that's starting to be less the case.
Well, I think you could see more in general third-party votes for all of them. I don't think anything.
Right, as a total, you're saying as a grand total versus not one candidate. Okay.
But
Yeah,
honestly,
right.
it would not surprise me if you see a major nosedive in votes, period.
Period.
And a
Just
lot
people
of
not participating. I agree.
Yeah, I think you could see that, because I think between what's going on in Gaza and inflation is still bad in certain respects, particularly with food prices.
Right.
And if there is a debate between, one bigoted, racist criminal and another senile, warmongering asshole, that's not exactly exciting to, get everybody out there. All right. I think we played all the clips I wanted to. Before we wind down, because again, it looks like this is going to be going on for another hour or two.
Yeah.
What are your overall thoughts? Looks like right now, let's just put it at, we think there's going to be about 75 to 100,000 uncommitted votes. What do you think the takeaway from that?
I think it might be a little higher, actually.
Could be, yeah.
If the Dearborn, wait, they're updating it right now as we speak. Oh, not much of a change. It's really fascinating to me that how we came to this place. Like, I think 2016, we saw a lot of angst out there where people were dissatisfied with what the DNC did, obviously, with Bernie Sanders. And I think we've just been slow stepping to a place where that was never healed. That rift was never healed with a lot of the Democratic Party base. They're still angry about it. A lot of them didn't come back to the party.
Mm-hmm.
And I think now, as we go into this election cycle, saying, the fascists might be coming back in office isn't just enough to get a lot of these guys out there to vote. They're just completely over it, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
And I think the Democratic Party just doesn't seem to understand that, or they don't want to, which I don't understand. Effectively, if you look at the DNC platform and the types of policies that the Democratic Party, supposedly supports, they're popular policies. But the reality, time and time again, is that they don't support what's in their platform. When it comes time to putting putting their foot down on something, they just don't seem to have the strength to do that. They don't have the back to do that. And I think people just are like they're fed up with that. They're like, they're useless is like a term that I see often. The Democratic Party's become useless. What do they do? Roe v. Wade is a prime example. I don't think we should ever have reached a point where that was even considered to be on the chopping block. They had a very long time to codify Roe v. Wade into law. They chose not to make it a priority.
Right.
Right. So just too many disappointments along the way, too many tone deaf, wealthy individuals getting their way at the expense of the working class in this country. I think the Democratic Party has tried for a very long time to serve two masters, meaning we're going to try to placate the working class in this party and still try to be the FDR party. At the same time, we're going to, go after, this third wave Bill Clinton part of the party, taking all that corporate money because we like taking in that corporate money. It's not going to be a problem. Well, it is a problem. It is a problem. It's finally coming to head right now, I think. And I just think what's happening in Gaza is the cherry on the sundae. I think all of these other things have been sort of pushing us in this direction.
And I want to play this clip. I sent it to you, Colin, because I just saw it. Apparently, Nina Turner was on CNN's panel tonight and tried to make a moral point about what's going on in Gaza. And
She got shut down.
Apparently, she got shut down. Well, shocker. Colin, let me know when we could play that.
Unbelievable. See, that's the other problem, right? How media is complicit in all of this. I mean, I not to mention what's going on with Vice and a couple of these other organizations. Like, did you really think venture capital would be a good thing to bring into the news organization?
Let's play this.
and they are in fact suffering. And I am young enough to remember, colleagues, when Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib and also Congresswoman Cori Bush called for a ceasefire very early on. They were called abhorrent. Now, fast forward to all of these bodies laying in the wake and people who are living through this every single day.
So by the way, there's also been slaughter in Israel.
I was going to say,
so there's a lot of pain on
Oh,
both
for
sides.
fuck's sake.
I'm not a lecture on the problem, but I'm talking about the politics of this tonight. What to you would be a victory, as somebody was calling for this uncommitted vote, what to you would be a victory tonight?
Wait, can you rewind that, Colin? Can you rewind that? I want to hear him say we don't need a lecture on the problem.
Yeah, you do need a lecture on the problem. I mean, you clearly need a lecture on the problem. Unbelievable. I mean, totally believable, but unbelievable.
Every single day.
So by the way, there's also been slaughter in Israel.
I was going to say,
so there's a lot of pain on both sides.
No, I'm not.
I'm not a lecture on the problem, but I'm talking about the politics of this tonight.
Man,
what to you would be a victory, as somebody was calling for this uncommitted vote? What to you would be a victory tonight to get that message across?
I'm not denying that pain. All I'm saying that at a certain point after October the 7th, it becomes clear. I mean, you have a right-wing prime minister.
Right. We don't need to debate the issue.
But you understand what I'm saying? I'm not denying anybody's pain. What I am saying is that this president and our country has the power to say to Netanyahu, we need a permanent ceasefire. The only time hostages, one more point. The only time hostages were released is when we had that brief ceasefire. That is another reason why.
She's right on that.
First of all,
that was the only time they got hostages back.
First of all, and I'm saying this as a Jewish person, and I have Israeli family, so take that for what it's worth. To try and equate or compare or make it seem like it's equal
is insane. I know.
The Israeli suffering, I mean, it's not a competition. I mean, if your relative dies, to you, it's the worst devastation. You're not comparing it to others, but 1,200 people died in Israel. It's horrible. 30,000 people have died in Gaza.
I know.
19,000 of whom are women and children. So the immediate.
It is collective punishment. Collective punishment is a war crime.
But I'm saying the immediate diverting of the discussion away from the obvious points she was trying to making to almost like reprimanding her for
it's gross.
Even trying to bring up the Palestinian murder or genocide just shows you the sickness of our media. And I say that as a Jewish person. I want the hostages released. I'm not for the innocent slaughter of Israelis either. But you can't that was like both sides of it. Like, yeah, there's pain on both sides. It's equal. No, it's not equal.
No, it's not equal. And for him to say, I don't need a lecture, I'm like, you actually do need a lecture.
And by the way,
if I had been Nina on that show, I'd been like, bro, you actually do need a lecture. And I'm going to give you one.
Can I just say something? Can I just say something?
Yeah.
And, I might be criticized for this as a Nina Turner fanboy, but this shows you the class of Nina Turner.
Yes, I agree.
No, you don't know why I'm going to say so.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant because...
Nina Turner was left at the altar. Rashida Tlaib didn't endorse her. Second time she ran. Cori Bush didn't endorse her. AOC endorsed her 12 hours before the election.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah, I do remember that. It was wild to me. Why was that the case?
None of the squad supported her, and she's on TV doing the right thing.
Defending them, yeah.
And defending them. So for all the people that, shit on, Nina Turner and whatever, she's on there doing the right thing and speaking up for Rashida and Cori Bush, who did not, frankly, do the right thing for her. So that's a side note. But that is in large part, our baby boomer generation, not all of them, because some of them are watching right now and we love you, but a large part of our baby boomer generation who have been being fed a steady diet of Anderson Cooper and Rachel Maddow and, Tom Friedman and David Brooks for the New York Times are say Israel could do no wrong because they're fed this bullshit constantly of false equivalencies and both sidesing, and even a minutia of progressive argument is shut down. I mean, MSNBC,
Jordan,
hell,
how
they fired Phil Donahue when he was against the Iraq War. They fired Ed Schultz, who's
that's right.
gone
Ed
now
Schultz.
because he was against the TPP trade deal. They fired CNN fired Mark Monhill for being pro-Palestinian, and now they're shutting Nina Turner down and saying we don't need a lecture on that genocide, Missy. Unbelievable.
It is unbelievable. I just don't understand how Anderson and Cooper can look at the same videos that we do and think there's not a problem here. That's what's wrong with media right now, because 40 years ago, that would not have been the case. 40 years ago, when news was a public service, a public good, and it wasn't for profit, for corporate profit, it was different, right? People would be willing to call something like that. This is what it is. This is not equivocation.
That was. I don't know how Nina Turner goes on those shows.
I don't either.
I hope they're paying her something, because that is just dreadful.
CNN, no, probably not. They're. I have thoughts. I have experiences. I doubt it. But God bless her for doing it. Somebody needs to, because they still have a very large audience, and you can't isolate from large audiences and effectively make change. So,
a couple notes before we go. Right now, it's at 33,000 uncommitted with 25% of the vote. So quarter of the vote is in Michigan, and it's at 33,000 uncommitted. So they've totally blasted through that 10,000 vote expectation. I should note this. I'll just note it because I've covered it. Kalamazoo County. Obviously, I've covered the Kalamazoo story as far as the paper mill poisoning a poor Black community. They're at 15% uncommitted. It's a fairly Democratic area. So the fact that 15% of Kalamazoo County is at uncommitted, this is just speculation, but would not surprise me if some of that has to do with the Black voters voting against Biden. It's Whitmer and Biden who are letting this paper bill poison the fuck out of them. Genesee County, which Flint is in, that's 13% right now are voting uncommitted. And Wayne County, again, Dearborn, Detroit, that's at 24% uncommitted. So when it's all said and done, the largest percentage will come from Wayne County, because that's where Dearborn and Detroit are. But from what I've seen online, Detroit, particularly Dearborn, the majority of the vote are not in from Dearborn. So that's why the number is going to be going up significantly. Obviously, we'll stay on this because it's a major story. I am going to be going back to Flint soon to shoot a documentary. So while I'm in Flint, I'm going to try to go to Dearborn and talk to people. Obviously, there will still be people to talk to about this. But it's just sad. It's very sad that religion, for all the good that it can do, it does bring people together in some ways and communities and gives people comfort. But it also wreaks a lot of havoc, death, and destruction. And it's very sad that we are supporting something that's so clearly wrong. I want people in Israel to be safe, just like I want people in Palestine to be safe, just like I want people in Yemen to be safe. I want the Palestinians to have their own country and self-determination and land. And, people just want to live and raise their kids and, have a chance and not have to live in perennial fear and, be terrorized constantly by a colonializing, occupying force. Right. And unfortunately, just like America in many ways, I think has become like the British that we revolted against. I think, Israel has in large ways become like the people that committed genocide on them, treating them inhumanly. But we'll continue covering it. It's not easy for me to cover this because, as I've made clear, I have a lot of people in my life who vehemently disagree with me, who I have to see from time to time and talk to, namely my family. But, there's no price on integrity, and you have to stick with, your principles. But for America, this has major implications because, there are single issue voters, and this, like abortion, it was the determining factor in the midterm elections. Because it was so close to the overturning of Roe v. Wade. This could be even with a convicted Republican nominee, and he might be convicted by that point.
Yeah.
It looks like the January 6th trial might start in spring.
Yep.
That doesn't mean he's going to be put in jail if convicted. He would probably be out on an appeal, but he would
Right.
still be convicted. But up is down these days in American politics, and even of convicted Trump, if we're still not only, even if the active fighting is done, if America is doing nothing to help the Palestinians and,
Right.
Keep Israel in check and try to actually build something. I don't know if it's a 2-state solution. I doubt it's a 1-state solution, but something real for Palestinians, then I think this uncommitted is going to stick around in some way or the other. So your final thoughts, Tina?
No, I agree with most of that. I do think actually a 1-state solution makes more sense, though. But that's a longer discussion. Mainly because I just don't see how you dismantle the entire settlement system that's in place. Their settlements are literally everywhere in the West Bank. You can't. And I just think I think really what should happen is Israel just kind of grows up and becomes an actual democracy, and people live together like under equal rights. Like I think most Palestinians would accept that. That's the thing. I don't think the right-wing Israelis will. That's the problem.
Right. And I will say, I'll close it on this, because at the end of the day, follow the money, Lebowski. There's a reason. Yeah. There's a reason the flag is behind me. It's not just a wonderful prop. By the way, you could get a United Corporations of America shirt at statuscoup.com/store. Just throwing that out there. Listen, when 70%, I think the numbers, new poll from Data for Progress, voters continue to support the U.S. calling for a permanent ceasefire and de-escalation in the U.S. 77% of Democrats, 69% of independents, 56% of Republicans. So when 56% of Republicans, 69% of independents, and 77% of the Democrats want this, and Biden meekly, and the State Department spokesperson every day is meekly, we could only share what we want. Israel is the right. You got to follow the money.
Yeah.
Who is Biden going around the country right now begging for millions? It's mega donors, pro-Israel donors. I mean, that's unfortunately who's running the country. If we had
Big
public
money,
financing, if we weren't flooded in super PACs, if Biden wasn't, going to Haim Saban's mansion for 3 fundraisers in a weekend, and Jeffrey Katzenberg wasn't his his campaign co-chair, helping him raise, tens of millions of dollars and donating tens of millions of dollars. Maybe you'd have a more clear-eyed vision on the right thing to do. Let me read some super chats before we go. Haver, new member. Thank you, Haver. Appreciate it. Thank you to all new members tonight.
Yeah, thank
Mike,
you.
$2. You're doing great. Thank you. Thank you, Mike. Bill signed up as a new member. Thank you so much, Bill. Appreciate that. Tony D, Jordan, and
Hey,
Tina
Tony.
with a heart. My favorite duo. What do you both think of Aaron Bushnell's protest? James Carville is a lizard person. I'm too tired to go in depth, but
Painful.
in general,
I just got one word: painful.
I'm not for self-violence. I'm not necessarily calling that a traditional suicide. I don't think it was mental illness, but I also don't necessarily believe in burning yourself on fire either. With that said, I think his cause was righteous, and obviously, I don't know the person, I don't know his history, but to make that permanent of a sacrifice, you have to have a lot of integrity. With that said, maybe chaining yourself to a building next time or something less permanent. I don't know. I'm not trying to make fun of it, but I feel mixed. I guess that's the honest answer. I'm mixed on it. I think you agree.
It's painful. Yeah, I can't wrap my head around it yet.
Yeah. Ryan, $5. Andy Levin was one of the Congress members that was targeted by AIPAC.
Yes,
he
that's
lost
right.
to Haley Stevens. Yep. Not just Andy. He was a congressman who lost, but Jessica Cisneros almost won in Texas. AIPAC flooded Texas, particularly to
I
help.
would put out like Andy Levine's Jewish too. So here you can't make
Yeah.
the case that AIPAC is out there. Like they want to say like we're supporting Jewish candidates, but are you?
Right.
Are you?
But AIPAC flooded money to take down Jessica Cisneros, flooded money to take down Nina Turner. They were successful, at least in the first congressional campaign. I think their money was instrumental in beating her. She lost by 4,000 votes. They tried to take down Summer Lee in Pennsylvania, almost did. She narrowly won. A couple other that I can't think of at the moment. AIPAC flooded money and helped defeat progressive candidates. They've also propped up a lot of January 6ers and insurrectionist congresspeople. So they're not exactly upstanding citizens, shall we say.
No.
Tyler, member for 7 months. Thanks for everything you do. Thank you, Tyler. Scotty, $1.99. Cornell West or Jill Stein, 2024. Love Status Coup. I would take either, but unfortunately, I think they're kind of taking votes from each other. Tony, $5. So all our courts are bought? Pretty much, I'd say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Pretty much. Tony, $20. USA gives Israel funding every year, money for free schools, healthcare, retirement, WTF. You know, on one end, yes, but on the other end, even if we stop giving Israel and all this money, and even if we shut down the 800 bases all around the world, I'm not convinced they'd give you Medicare for all or better education, because I don't think I don't necessarily think we're not spending money on those things because we're giving money overseas.
No, it's because it's profiteering. It's corporate profiteering.
I don't think they want to spend the money on
that's right.
working people, because that would open up Pandora's box and prove they actually can do things for the people. Tony, $5. Biden told us he was a Zionist first, Christian second, American third. Yeah. Scotty, $1.99. Zionism needs to RIP. Hashtag Cornell West or Jill Stein. Abaya signed up as a new member. Thank you so much, Abaya. Really appreciate it. The Zato, we read this, $100. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. That's wow. Just so generous.
Ish Talk TV, $4.99. Thanks for the service. The only white media outlet I gave money to. Much love from the DMV. Love being your favorite whitey.
That's awesome. That's two tonight.
Yeah. Brian, $5. I support RFK because he's talking about corporate capture of agencies. And if elected, the drunk companies would be running. I think you're being hoodwinked, Brian. He could talk about it all he wants.
Does he actually mean it? Is my thing. I just don't. I think he's a
Brian.
I think he's
here's a rule of thumb,
a fraud.
Brian.
I think he's a fraud.
You could support whoever you want, but if you're going around doing massive fundraisers with millionaires and billionaires, I don't particularly think you're going to do anything about corporate capture because they're part of the corporate capture. So he might have fought against certain corporate capture or certain special interests. He's done good work on the environmental end. Certainly, we give him credit for that. But when you call yourself a champion of the free market and you're going around trying to get money from pretty much anyone with a wallet, conservative, I mean, he's taken a lot of money from Trump billionaires. I can't really think you're going to be that serious about corporate capture. And I honestly don't really want someone as president who can't give a yes answer to should children get vaccinated for measles. I think that's a non-starter. That's a non-starter.
That's a non-starter for me too.
Because for those who think like, yeah, I don't agree with that, but like just put that aside. No, you can't put deadly medical misinformation to the side that like endangers children. Maybe because I have a daughter now, but like that's not just like, all right, agree to disagree, but I like him on everything else.
Yeah, come on.
Yeah, he's saying he wouldn't give an answer on whether children should get vaccinated for measles. There's a outbreak in Florida. And we have a lunatic governor of Florida and a lunatic surgeon general in Florida. Right. You want this man as president? What if there's another pandemic and he's the president with power over the FDA, the CDC? I mean, not that I have a lot of nice things to say about either, but it could get worse if you have someone who
could get worse. I mean, here's the other thing. There's a difference between having a conversation about corporate corruption within pharmaceutical companies and whether vaccines save lives. Those things should not be conflated together. Polio vaccines, no corporate money behind that at all. In fact, that patent was owned by the people as it should be now. We finance all of these vaccines with our taxpayer dollars, and yet they are now able to retain the patents, and they're very greedy. So there is a conversation to be had about corporate greed in pharmaceutical companies. There is not a conversation to be had about vaccines and whether or not they save lives, in my opinion. And I don't like to see these two things conflated.
Right. And there's a lot of conflation going on, and there's a lot of people stupidly making it seem that if you are for vaccines, you're with big pharma, or some like
That's
stupid
nonsense.
lizard brain
Yeah.
thinking. I mean, that's just
That's
stupid,
nonsense.
to be honest. So, Tina,
It makes
thank you
me
for-
sad that so many people have been brought into that belief, though.
Yes, it is sad, but all you can do is tell the truth, whether you
Hi,
get.
Colin. Colin's here.
I was gonna say if you want to read the private chat, we had some donations as well.
Oh, nice.
Thank you.
Wow, we've had a busy night.
Daniel joined as a member.
Welcome, Daniel.
$5 donation from Tracy. Thank you, Tracy. $10 donation from Stacy, Tracy and Stacy. $5 donation from Elliot. Thank you. And a $50 donation from Paul.
Thank you, Paul.
I think John thanked this person last night, but I want to particularly thank. We got an amazing donation last night while John was live. $1,200.
Whoa.
$1,200 from Catherine. That does not happen a lot.
No.
And
Very
Catherine,
generous.
Catherine, if you're watching, I emailed you from my email, Jordan Chariton at Status Coup, to thank you. Because honestly, times have not been easy. I was talking to Tina earlier about, money's tight, and we don't have a magic tree that Jeffrey Katzenberg planted for us. So $1,200 helps.
Very appreciate that. Yeah.
Any amount is appreciated, but obviously that significantly helps. So thank you, Colin. Thanks for working late and putting this together. Let's give the final. It's not the final, but final before we sign off.
Yeah.
So,
Let's take one more look at the tally.
27% of the vote, 35,000 uncommitted. So that's about 14.5% of the vote. So yeah, it does look like
it looks like it's going to hit 100. Yeah.
Yeah. So it looks like it'll hit 100,000, which is way the fuck more than 10,000. And Wayne County, the number keeps going up. So yeah, I'll definitely have coverage of this tomorrow. Yeah. Tina, what should people expect on Friday when you're live at 5?
So yeah, Friday we will have a panel to go over CPAC that just happened. So I'll be joined.
That would be the Conservative Political Action Conference, aka the Carnival, the zoo.
Yeah. So I will have guests, the panel, Amanda Moore, an activist who goes by the name Anarchy Princess, Zach Roberts, and Eric LeVay will be joining me.
Awesome. That's at 5 o'clock Eastern,
5
Friday.
Yes. We've got lots of video clips and all kinds of things from CPAC. So
Tina's the hardest work. Tina's the hardest working person in showbiz. So thank you. All right. Thanks, everybody. And I'll cover this tomorrow to the final results. Good night.